Call the meeting to order, the Griggs County Commission at 1 o'clock. The second day of July. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call. Are we going to get Ron on the phone?
I am. Hello, Ron. We're just starting.
Okay, sounds good.
Can you hear okay?
Yep, I can hear you real good.
All right.
Hi, Ron.
Hi, Troy.
Okay, we're just going to take a roll call. Ron Dahl.
Here.
Ron is attending by phone. John Wakefield.
Here.
Dale Peterson.
Here.
Sean Steffen.
Here.
Troy is here. Alrighty, approval of the agenda. Any additions or corrections to the agenda for the meeting today?
I would like to add the North Dakota Department of Labor and Human Rights letter that we received this morning to the agenda.
And is Jamie prepared to discuss that?
I think so. I don't know.
He knew about it before today?
Yeah, I sent it to him today and he informed me that he had filed it with somebody.
Okay. We'll add that to the agenda after Harold. Anything else?
I'd move to approve the agenda with the addition of the Department of Labor letter.
Been moved by Sean to approve the agenda as amended. Is there a second to the motion?
I'd second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Same sign. Motion carries. Okay, minutes from June 19th and June 29th.
There was 2 corrections that I made after the packets had already been made. On page 2, up on the top, also present were, and there was nothing. I did add that it was Wayne, Jacob, and Tennyson, State's Attorney Tennyson. And then on page 3, it says Travis Palm joined the meeting. It was supposed to be joined. 4th paragraph down.
Okay.
Those are the only corrections that I found.
Anybody have any additions or corrections to the June 19th meeting minutes?
The one thing that I saw on page 2, it says there was also discussion on what happened with the equipment after it had been updated. It probably, if it said what happened with the old equipment after it had been replaced with new equipment, it seems like it would be more clear on what we were talking about.
Where are you seeing?
Talking about page 2 or page 3?
Page 2,
I think it's
where it says,
packet 2 of the minutes.
yeah, Chairman Olson opened the floor to discuss the computer rotation with IT Palm, and then there was also discussion on what happened with the equipment after it had been updated. I think we were talking about what happened with the old equipment after it had been replaced with new equipment.
So you could almost just add old in front of equipment.
Yeah, that would do it probably.
Old equipment and then take out updated and then put replaced. Would that be okay?
Well, yeah, that would be better, yeah,
Right,
too, I
that
think.
would be
With
better.
the replaced equipment.
Okay. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to accept the June 19th minutes with corrections and dispense with the reading.
So moved by Sean to accept the minutes as amended. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now move on to the 20 minutes from the 29th of June. Special meeting for the beer and liquor license at the pub.
I'll move to accept the June 29th meetings minutes as presented and dispense with the reading.
Been moved by Sean to accept the minutes as presented and dispense with the reading. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by John. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to the bills.
We had 2 bills that came in this morning, if we could please add them. One to Griggs County for postage and one to Wrighton.
Postage is part of that resolution, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. And for writings for repair, or iron or something, supplies, okay. $139.70 to writings. How much postage do you buy at a time? Oh, that's something they carry to the post office or something.
I'm not very sure.
I mean, how come you don't just use your postage meter to post stuff? Must have been a certified letter.
This is for the Bank of the West, so I don't know if they don't have a stamp machine.
What?
I don't know,
Bank of the Past.
because it's for the Bank of the West building.
That makes sense.
It's for the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I don't know if they don't have like a machine like we have.
They don't come up here and post their
I
stuff.
don't think so. So that might be why.
Any questions on the bills?
The ones for Game and Fish, those are just in and out accounts.
Right.
And the one for JDA is just we didn't have anything budgeted for, and that's the
past taxes.
coming in. Hope Glass, that's for the EOC, didn't have anything budgeted for it, so it's all just going into that one fund. KLJ, those are the reimbursement requests that we do every week.
But the EOC, that's an in and out account also, because the payments are coming from the state on that.
Correct. Just on my report, it's
Right.
negative as well.
Okay.
At the end of the year, there'll be a posting showing the income into that account to balance the book. Yeah.
How come the Game and Fish one is showing twice?
Because it's one for me and one for Lori. We got a check in for doing that, and then whoever does the work usually gets that money. We got a check from Game and Fish for that. For like doing those, the Game and Fish certificates and stuff like that. And Cindy always gave it, I know last year it was half to Christy and half to me.
But your balance is the same for two different checks. It should change from one to the other, shouldn't it?
That's the balance before these come out.
Oh,
Does that mean?
okay.
What? The Game and Fish?
The Game and Fish, the state sends us a check for doing the Game and Fish. For going and collecting all of their books. Does that make sense? For doing like the report.
Well, it makes sense. I guess what we're questioning is how does that become a salary to an employee of the county when it's done on county time? How can that then be transferred? Well, how is that over and above the duties of the auditor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that's what the question is. That's what my question is.
I mean, this isn't the reimbursement for the stamps that were sold?
No, because we
So the Game and Fish pays people to sell licenses?
They pay an administrative fee.
Oh, they do?
Which is through every auditor's office.
To every auditor's office, they reimburse the cost of that person, is really what it is.
Right.
and we get a check. It was made out to me, and so then I went and deposited the money and then brought the cash back to Connie and put that money in so that we had a trail. And then Cindy always had it so that whoever did that work got that money. Am I not supposed to do that?
Well, you kind of see the conflict in that. You're doing work on county time that you're already paid a county wage for, and then you are collecting the fee. So unless you can,
The state is really reimbursing the county for your time.
yeah.
I mean, it's like, if,
It's like a day labor company that
when I go to work in the morning and I call somebody and tell them they need to make a loan payment, I don't get the loan payment.
I mean, we're not.
I'm not mad at you.
We're not.
No, I know.
It's just a policy that shouldn't.
Because the precedence has been set, unfortunately.
Right, but to continue making a mistake is making the mistake. You have to, when something, just because it's done before, it doesn't mean it makes it right. So, in essence, yes, okay, you're being paid for that work, but then you should reimburse the county for the money they paid you when you did that work. Because now you're being paid double time. I think that's got to come to a stop, I believe.
There's a lot of those little things.
There's a lot of those little things that somehow just got added in, and every time the job description changes a little bit doesn't mean that creates a new job or a new pay stream. So when do we make the payment then to the state for the money we collect for the actual license?
We already did that.
Right, so we as we collect it, we make a payment, and then they reimburse us. Is it 5%? Or is it a monthly fee?
I think it's a percentage of the sales, but I don't know what it is.
That remote doesn't work. That remote doesn't work.
Oh, the batteries are dead.
I changed the batteries too.
It was working.
Well, I know, we're working on it, turned down just long.
I mean, air conditioner down is colder or warmer.
It doesn't want to. Now you do.
What's wrong?
Fan just has to kick in again.
Install.
still there, Ron?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay.
Ask him if he knows how to run his air conditioner.
So you got $45.15.
$1 or $145.15.
Between the two of them.
Yep, I gave Laura got the 100.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow. Not worth fighting over. Not worth fighting over, I said.
No. Okay, go ahead, I'm listening.
Any other questions on the bills?
Well, I'd move to approve of the June bills, July vouchers as presented.
Been moved by Sean to present the June bills and July vouchers as presented,
Can you add these two for me?
with the addition of
Ratings and
post office.
post office.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Monthly office reports. Did you get the remote to go?
Yeah. Put the batteries
You
in
have to have the batteries in there, huh?
Yep. I think their dad does it quit again, but it's so.
You were sabotaging us. We'll speed up this meeting. The weed board bought a Ranger, is that right? That's gone a shot. What was bought in 2013?
Pickup.
Oh, there's a pickup?
I think so.
Oh, the pickup, yeah. That's that one that,
Silver Dodge, Green Dodge.
that's the one the extension agent was driving?
Yeah,
The previous one?
yeah. I don't know what the weed board was bought or the county agent or.
Well, it looks like the weed board.
So that's the one we put our spray tank in the back and mounted it in there solid.
Okay. Well, that's what it's for, apparently. Any questions on the monthly office reports?
I'd make a motion to accept the monthly office reports as presented.
Motion been made by Sean to accept the office reports as presented. Is there a second to that motion?
I'd second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion?
Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Wayne's next, but he doesn't have anything in the packet. Oh, is this notice of cutting weeds and all
Well,
that?
Sam and I talked about this the other day.
Okay. When I read that thing, I mean, you know what you're gonna spray, don't you?
Yeah.
So is there restrictions on that spray?
Yes.
You're spraying Tordon and 2,4-D or what?
Oh, as far as that goes, I don't know. I haven't studied the test yet.
There's a raising restriction on it, even on 2,4-D.
On hay?
Well, it would just be that if they sprayed it, rolled up in a bale and fed it right away, that would be the same as grazing restriction.
So do we need to notice them?
And that I don't know.
Now, it says we do, right?
Who says we do?
So there's a century code or something?
Oh,
Maybe? Maybe not. It doesn't say a century code on that. Or there, it's just on the noxious weed.
Yeah, the chemical label will say we have to notice it
What
anyway.
weeds you have to spray.
I would say to limit the county's liability, we should.
Yeah, and to be in compliance with the chemical certification, you would have to also.
okay.
Because you are semi-public land.
Now, if we know what we're gonna spray, can't we just put that in there?
That's what the chemical label will dictate, yes, you should put in what you spray in.
Couldn't that be in the notice is what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because we're probably gonna spray.
We are in the
2,4-D
process
either
of
way.
spraying these right-of-ways and we're using Tordon and 2,4-D or whatever we use.
2,4-D.
at the rate, at this,
SCP.
you have to put the rate, how many pounds per active per acre, yeah.
If
And
we
I don't know when we're gonna do that. You know, we have nobody certified yet, so I don't know if that has to go in now, as there is really no
Well, if we can't
date that has
spray,
to be in there. We won't spray
when do you
till
think someone's gonna be
fall,
certified?
A lot of them won't be able to spray till. Like if the wheat's harvested or whatever, yeah, we can spray that or barley or alongside of that, but we don't want it to go into somebody's soybeans or something.
Depends on their coming ag right away or not.
So are we covered under the county's
liability.
liability? I mean, we probably have to take out a special rider or insurance or something that says weed spraying.
I think
don't know.
we'll have to send a check on that with the agent.
Because I think Foster County, I talked to Nate again, and I think they have like $2 million. That's the lead officer or whatever.
Yeah, liability, I mean, there'd be no way you could do physical damage anywhere near that.
No, it'd just be a killing of a crop.
Yeah, but I mean, couldn't.
You couldn't kill $2 million in a crop if you sprayed every ditch in this.
If you stole my airplane, you couldn't do it.
Well, anyway, when we fill these, do these tests, we have to have $100,000.
Liability. But that's just a standard liability, no different than on the vehicles and everything else.
Does each person have to have a personal insurance policy that does that, or does it? Are we
I don't know.
covered?
I don't.
It shouldn't have to be. You're employed by the county. You're not doing it on.
The county's gonna get you certified and anybody that's certified should be covered under the liability insurance. But again,
If we wouldn't
you need
spray
to-
it,
you need to talk to.
If we spray your crop or your pasture.
But you're talking two different liabilities here now. The $1 million liability would be
If somebody got in an accident.
right,
Yeah.
and then there's separate crop liability damage that is a separate rider on all those policies, at least on the private policies. it
Yeah,
is.
but we're covered under an accident
Right.
policy, right? I think it has to do with the damage of crops and whatever, trees and, not that you can kill trees,
Take the lease off them.
but anyway, yeah. We didn't know if it should go in now, probably.
When are you gonna have guys certified? It should probably go in
Just before you start.
A few weeks before.
a month
Some of the
before you
hay is
spray,
already
because then
done.
if the hay is already done, people aren't gonna call.
Yeah.
You know, there's no point in telling them to call now, and then you can tell them that we're not gonna spray till fall. That's kind of
Right.
not nonsensical.
We can also put it on our website.
Yeah.
But this noxious weed notice, that needs to go in there, right?
Yeah. Because if somebody's spraying their own stuff, this is, according to the Central Code, this is what it's try to control.
Right.
So we can put that in the paper.
Right, looks like Jill published it on May 16th and May 23rd last year, so
Yeah.
we should
I
probably...
saw it in my files and that's why I was like, oh crap, we need to.
Okay,
Then another thing, I erred in, usually every spring we advertise for gravel bids. I didn't know if I was going to be using any other gravel because I have piles that I've already purchased, but I didn't put that in there, so we never got any bids for it. Usually it's Tom Gilbertson and he says what he wants,
but if you don't need any additional gravel, that doesn't matter, does it?
Well, I think we're all right on that too. Just next year, we should be in April or actually, we usually have we used to do culverts and gravel, but we don't do culverts anymore because, well, there used to be competition. Well, there still is some, but they're located in Minnesota. So we usually do the Gilbert's and culverts that are cheaper.
John Painter said they did a very nice job on that road that goes by those guys. He said it was very nice.
Another thing, I know this is early, but several months ago, we talked about having it's not in your packet, motor grader training classes. It's, we're having them all different places around the state. And I signed up for Barnes County and Griggs County and somebody else, I think it was something together. Yeah, there's one day of classroom at Barnes County shop, and then they have one day to come out to work with the operators and says whether you're new or old, there's things that you can do. Motor grader operators and supervisors who manage motor grader operators should attend this program. New operators will find the training helpful, and experienced operators find it to be a good refresher course and a good means to share their knowledge with fellow operators. And this is in August 17th and 19th, so there's still time, but they want me to register if I can register. 4-blade operators, I was thinking. Still got time to think about it.
So you got money in your budget. You got money.
Take it out of it's $150 per person, so it's not cheap.
Well, you-
use lunch in the classroom.
You got one rookie for sure.
We gain a lot of knowledge from it, I think. They can explain things a lot better than I can. You know.
I think it's worthwhile
I think so,
to take
too.
advantage of those.
We're gonna
How
talk
many
about-
times did you hear, oh, unless we got a new blade, man?
Yeah.
You know, so.
We're talking about dust control, drainage, repair of frost heaves, use of fabric, gravel quality, planing techniques, safe operation, daily equipment maintenance. That's day one in the class, and then day two, hands-on training, pre-trip inspection, safe operation, equipment operation, and post-trip inspection. At the end of the day.
I wouldn't think it'd take long to make up the $150.
I don't think so.
Okay. Appreciate it. Then we'll turn it to
KLJJ?
Jake KLJ, Modern.
KOR.
KLJ.
Well, I don't have too much today. Just want to let you guys know I did talk to Aztec. They're the company doing the Seal Coat project. And it sounds like they plan to be in Griggs County in early August to do that project. Graveling projects, I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, noticed they haven't been started yet. I talked to Tom yesterday, Tom Gilbertson, and he said they're trying to finish up a project, I think for the railroad. He said as soon as they get done with that, our project is next.
That is a giant project.
So it sounds like. So he's hoping next week, but he said at this point, he'll give me a call when he knows more. And that's all I got.
Yeah, if those guys don't get after that county road down there, it's gonna be wheat harvest, then it's gonna be kind of bitchy.
Yeah. Nice to got it done.
It'd be nice if it was laid down before that.
And that rain delayed some of their railroad work, I think, and stuff.
Yeah, they were having a tough time in that pit out at the Thompson Bridge, they couldn't get in and out of there, I guess.
I don't think they maybe added some material. Some more yards of gravel before the old rocks. So. Anyway, that's how they are. We been grabbing, like we said, we grabbed 111. That's one spots to do. And today is the day for the RFP, the engineering proposal.
We received one. Is in your pile of packets.
How many proposals did we get?
One.
One. From
KLJ.
Lucky they didn't know that ahead of time.
yeah.
How do you know they didn't?
You suspect collusion?
Ron, I wasn't able to get you this because it's a book.
What was that, Samantha? You're going to send me an email on it?
I couldn't get this sent to you because it's in a booklet, but KLJ
Was the only respondent to the engineering, the call for engineering.
Okay, yeah, that's probably not surprising, and it should be just fine.
Yeah, we've went through the procedure now, so that it's been advertised, and now we can be assured this is the best value for the citizens.
Yep.
Motion to accept the engineering proposal which we have in front of us.
I'll move to accept the engineering proposal from KLJ.
Been moved by Sean to accept the engineering proposal from KLJ. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Ron?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carried. I wonder if we should talk about that resolution next, since we got
Boom here.
the guys here that can answer the questions. Apparently this one that's signed by Lyle Pfeiffer, that was done prior.
Yeah.
So on that one, there's no minimum ditch bottom width in there.
Right.
Is there a reason for that?
I don't think we were talking about draining, at that time, or anything, or drains in the ditch. We were just more or less looking at the standards to build a road,
Okay.
you know.
Jake, is there a standard?
Typically, what we always shoot for is an 8-foot ditch bottom. But there are, sometimes there's right-of-way constraints or other constraints where we have to shrink it in. We've done ditches, even a V ditch, basically a 2-foot bottom. We don't like to do that, but if we're in a town where we have 33 feet of right-of-way and we can't buy right-of-way,
Okay.
from the residents, then that's all we can do. But typically, if we're in the open country, we always shoot for an 8-foot or wider ditch.
Just for maintenance purposes, or what's?
Honestly, up here in North Dakota, the biggest thing is snow. We want more
Capacity.
capacity for snow. Yep.
But if the ditch isn't there, you have less capacity anyway.
Yes.
So it isn't really a safety concern, per se.
No, the biggest safety concern when we're looking at a grading project is the slopes, to make sure the slopes are flat.
Okay.
We don't typically look at ditch bottom widths.
Okay. So, with that said, do we like the resolution that was passed by the previous commissioners, or is that just putting up a roadblock for people that want to do something within the right of way of the townships and county?
Well, it does that, but what I see it doing, because of the wording of it, it requires the 3-to-1, the 4-to-1, and 12-foot bottom with the required easements. Well, in order to obtain an easement, what happens if we have a 5-mile stretch of road and you have to obtain easements from people that don't want to give you the easement? This could be legal costs that unaccountable, and by making it mandatory, now we're locked in there. I don't think that makes any sense.
I think the other thing is, in a lot of cases, there's a utility easement on the private right-of-way that's 1 foot off of the county or township right-of-way, and it will be most likely be cost prohibitive for the landowner to do anything if in fact they have to pay for the relocation of those utilities. So to me, it just throws up a giant roadblock for, in many cases, if people want to do something.
And
I mean, it seems like we're just creating conflict.
we are, and to what purpose? For what's the purpose of requiring a 12-foot bottom and requiring that we obtain the easements? And the minute we require that of one person, then everybody has to do it, including the county. And we don't have, and if we don't have the right of way to do it, we're holding ourselves to that.
Stops yourself. From
Yeah,
making progress.
and for what purpose? What are we trying to accomplish with that? With the resolution?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Especially if it's not a safety, if it was a safety thing, obviously you
I mean, if you deepen a ditch and it gets narrower on the bottom, you still increase the snow holding capacity.
Right.
So if you're designing a project and you're going to reshape a road, I understand taking that into account. But if it's an existing project and you're putting in a half mile of, or you survey a drainage and you're just going from culvert to culvert anyway, it seems like that's terribly intrusive.
To me, that's
Is that, Dale, have you guys had this discussion at the water board?
They have. They're trying to kind of follow guidelines set in other counties, and I don't know why. That's just because it's easier to follow what's already been done.
Well, and I think other counties are trying to follow what's going to happen with Griggs County too. I think is what Bob told me, but I guess the one thing I'm concerned about, not really so much the bottom of the ditch, but just the slope, so we make sure that we don't open ourselves up to liability.
But the slope's
set, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't have a problem there. The in slope and the back slope, there is a standard for that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That,
Any work we do, we're required to conform to the safety standards, which on a county road, like it says here,
4-to-1 and
we need a
3-to-1.
4-to-1 on the inslope.
Yep.
3-to-1 on township is okay, but anything steeper than 3-to-1, you can't recover a vehicle if you hit that slope. Or studies have shown most cannot, so you have a better chance of rolling the vehicle.
Right. I get that part.
Yep. It's the bottom.
If the landowner does a project that doesn't have a wide enough ditch to get their scraper into, it will cost them more money to clean that ditch 5 years from now when it silts in. But that's not really our problem, because if his drainage doesn't work and he can't use a scraper and he has to go hire a backhoe operator to do it, he still made the choice. So he can
But
either.
is the county supposed to be providing us a place for farmers to run the water and the railways?
The roads are not supposed to be dams, Dale,
Yeah.
and the culverts are put in there at the time of the road build, and those ditches silt in.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. So, just by default, since there's ditches, that is where the water is gonna run.
Yeah.
So, as long as they're not, people are running around lowering culverts, I don't know, when the roads were designed, they were probably designed to be dry. The fact that they're not dry, I mean, look at the highway ditches, people clean them.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want the ditches all to be sitting full of water either.
No, absolutely. That creates a safety concern when there's water in the ditch.
Well, so then the question is, then do you
Plus
want
the
people, do
integrity
you
of the
want
road.
people to clean them? If you don't, then you make rules that make it prohibitive. But if you think it's okay, then you need to let them do it.
Well, I'm for getting the water away from the roads,
Yeah.
not for bringing it out of the field and putting it in the ditch. It has to keep moving.
That's what happens a lot of times.
But that is gonna happen. What's on the edge of every field? A road.
Yeah.
What's beside the road? Ditch.
But what Dale's saying is there's been a lot of drains that have been quote unquote cleaned and run into a ditch, and that wasn't a
natural
drain
route.
there wasn't an outlet to that ditch where they were cleaned into.
But that's for the NRCS and the water board to decide.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to get into that part.
No.
Somebody goes and builds a drain that they're not supposed to build. I'm not the police of that.
How does this sound? County ditches will be required at 4-to-1 in slope, flat 8-foot bottom, and 4-to-1 back slope, and township ditches will be required at 3-to-1 slope, 8-foot flat bottom, and 3-to-1 back slope with required easements. These provisions are subject to availability of adequate easements.
Adequate right away.
Or available right away.
I mean, if somebody wants to deviate from that, then we maybe should.
Right. But as long as they can't arbitrarily change the height of the culvert, what good does it do to dig a deep ditch if they can't move it past the next culvert?
They're not trying to build a bathtub either.
Right. So it would seem counterproductive for them to, again, unless we give them carte blanche to take it as far as they want to take it. But common sense will tell you that there's a landowner in a way, someplace along there that's going to disagree with that. And maybe most of them. This water thing is kind of you don't need a water police because everybody that isn't involved in the project is on the other side of the project.
It's kind of self-policing.
Yeah.
Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting.
Adequate right-of-ways.
Absolutely.
A lot of truth in that statement.
Right.
So you're proposing to rescind that?
Well, that's just.
Replace it?
I just think if we have it in the books and we enforce it, that we're subjecting the county to huge amounts of money that can be expended in order to obtain these easements to comply with this requirement, and that doesn't make any
If in
sense.
fact we want to do something.
Yeah.
What are the ditches at now, Wayne? What are most of the ditches at now?
Well, a lot of them, I think, have gotten steeper because they pushed down, And
The road top flattens out.
Yep, the top flattens out and the cap goes up.
So your bottom got narrow.
Whenever we reshape something, we go with 4-to-1. We can't, unless it's along a slough or someplace where you can't. We go with 4-to-1. And then years ago, when there was back slopes, well, they done it with the muckers, they just had a straight up and down thing. We put 4-to-1 on the back slopes. And anytime we reshaped or rebuilt the road, and we went by the guidelines at 4:1.
And the bottom of the ditch buried.
In the bottom of the ditch,
depending
because
on the
most of
depth.
the work was done with scrapers, those bigger scrapers.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We had varied from 60 feet to 55 to 75 feet of right of way.
So if we had it changed to the 3-to-1, but as it stands in there, the 8-foot bottom, and then these provisions are subject to availability of adequate right-of-way and pertain to new construction only. So we don't be in a position where we go out and having to redo every ditch.
If someone wants to do some maintenance, they shouldn't have to
Right.
cut a 12 foot.
Right, and then it gives some wiggle room on what's new construction and what's clean, as there always has been.
It's always clean, there's never new construction.
So I just,
There hasn't been a new drain dug in 40 years.
Yeah.
these provisions are subject to the adequate right away.
I hit the button when somebody told me that last year.
See us like guys going to draw where their drains were.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pencil marks put where there wasn't a drain, I'll tell you that.
That's a mistake.
Yeah.
Do you have a proposal?
Well, I mean, I can read it, Teddy. I don't know if it needs to be a.
Do we even need that if we just conform to the minimum standards that Lyle signed?
Only thing, like you said, on there, it doesn't say what's with the bottom.
But does the latter resolution supersede the preceding one when we do one?
I
Yeah,
would think so.
Yeah.
you guys make a resolution that cancels that.
I mean, this one was in 2010, this one was
So
2000.
county ditches will be required at 4-to-1 in slope, flat 8-foot bottom, and 4-to-1 back slope. Township ditches will be required at 3-to-1 in slope, 8-foot flat bottom, and 3-to-1 back slope with required and 3-to-1 back slope, and then remove the with required easements. These provisions are subject to the availability of adequate right-of-way and pertain to new construction only.
That motion?
Well, I don't know if it's a motion. I mean, is that what we're trying to do? I mean, that's.
To me, it is.
So, just clean that bottom.
And
Slope
then
you don't want to mess with.
and then they don't have to do anything. Then they can clean it without having. If they call it cleaned, it's cleaned. And certainly, if they go after certainly if they move a culvert, someone's going to know about it, and then they got to. So I don't know. I think.
Well, I don't know that we need that 12 foot bottom, that's kind of a big ditch.
No, I changed that to 8.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe we don't need a bottom.
We want to have something, though. Otherwise, we got what we got now.
But I guess 8 foot would be the maximum because it's dependent on adequate right of way to put the bottom in. So
That would be the standard unless there's not enough right away.
right, and then unless there's not enough right of
It
way.
all depends on how deep the ditch has to be.
Well,
If you don't have a bottom, it has to be cleaned. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Whoever's doing the ditching may have to get right away. If it's not their field, then they'll have to get their extra right away, not the county.
Yeah.
You know, as long as we have that 4-to-1 slope, in slope and back slope, and if they go too deep, they're gonna have to go out, so.
Well, no, I mean this you wouldn't have to. This you wouldn't have to maintain the slope either. These provisions are subject to availability of adequate right of way and pertain to new slope and new construction only. So if you don't have enough, I mean, we have a lot of ditches that are steeper than 4-to-1.
I think we're gonna have to have something that maintains slope though, because someone gets in an accident, we're gonna get ourselves.
I think we should maintain the slope.
Well, then we're back to the easements. Then if we have to maintain the slope, there's places where even if we had a V ditch, we're not gonna have enough room and we're gonna have to obtain easements.
Well, and that might happen
That's
on
not-
some of these issues.
That's not everywhere, and if we have to do it, we have to.
But I think that we have to have a slope to protect the county from liability. If we require some extra work to do easements, then we're gonna have to do easements, I think.
I think that's a pretty well accepted standard in this day and age. I don't know if you want to deviate from that. Really. You don't have to.
Maybe you don't have to have the part in there about the easements, just have them. You say it can only be a 4-to-1 in slope, 4-to-1 back slope, and 8-foot bottom,
Kind of speaks for itself.
then that speaks for itself. Then if they
Yeah, but I
can't do
think-
that, then they can't do it.
But I think there's some, in my mind, if they have to put in a 4-foot bottom because they run on a right of way, that's all right.
Yeah, but you just said that it had to be 8.
No, I should imagine.
No. These provisions are subject to the availability of adequate right-of-way. So you could conceivably not have any bottom if you didn't have enough right-of-way. But what I'm saying is, taken to the next step, you might have to have a steeper inslope and back slope because you didn't have enough right-of-way.
Yeah, and I think then we should talk about it, because I don't want to do that unless it's an extreme case.
Because last year we had a problem where this person was making it too deep, too steep, and he didn't meet that criteria, that guideline, so. I mean, I don't say we have to have a 12-foot, but I wouldn't want to go there with an 8. I mean, because if you go in the ditch, you're going to plow into the back slope. You have no chance to recover. And if we allow them to do whatever the right-of-way allows us to do, then we're in trouble, I think. And if they have to get extra right-of-way, then that's.
Well, that's no simple task. I mean, if someone,
Maybe
But
that'll
it's not,
hurt them.
it's going to be a rare case.
Maybe that'll stop me from.
it won't be a rare case. When we start rebuilding some of these roads and we have to abide by our own guidelines, it's not going to be a rare case.
Well,
It's going to be, and there's what happens when a slough comes up to the edge of the road. What happened the right of way?
Well, I mean, you can grant variances, John, but actually we're in a situation, I think, that's we're going to have to go after a lot of right-of-way easements anyway, because those easements weren't recorded, and it's not something I've gotten a chance to do yet. But in the 50s, when the county shop burned, all those easements hadn't been recorded, and they were sitting in the county shop, and we don't have easements on a lot of county roads right now.
I understand that.
So as far as us being able to enforce this right now, I think now is the best time to do it, because if we have to go after more easements, we have to go after more easements.
As far as the county roads, I think we have implied easements by this time.
Yeah, there's an easement has a restriction on them, but we still have to get the court to enforce those if the people want to sign them.
Again, to what purpose? Well, just to say that we can beat up on somebody? I mean, what are we trying to accomplish?
You mean as far as getting easements?
Yeah.
I think that we should have easements because we're running into a problem now with like that drain and utilities that we don't have the easements and don't really have any enforceable rates on that, on those right of ways.
But isn't it easier to deal with those on a case-by-case basis rather than
You won't ever have anything to deal with if you make this wide open. So you won't have a case-by-case basis. So you'll have to have a standard, and you can make exceptions to that standard. But if you don't have a standard, then it's a free-for-all.
Take a drive 40 miles east of here and look at every one of those ditches. They're cut like this, and they're still cutting them like this. And you get over in Red River Valley, and if they got to be 40 feet deep, they're 40 feet deep, and they don't obey the inslope or the. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Well, they've acquired right away to get those, to make those ditches deeper. There's no way they haven't acquired. I mean, look at them.
The ones that are done legally, and they've acquired. Look at the project going on by Northwood right now.
On the bigger projects, but go drive out on a county road in Trail County or east in Hillsborough over there. There are all kinds of ditches that are deep, and they're on a 33-foot right.
They're not doing ditches.
But that's probably not something that's been approved by the county.
Well,
And it's something the county probably has chosen. Over there, I think it ran into a different situation where the county's probably chosen not to enforce it too, or else everybody will be in the house.
But even so, we could allow the same thing, but at least it would be considered. If we don't have a standard, it'll just be that way, it won't be considered.
well, I mean, this gives us a standard. This gives us the 8 foot to 3 to 1 to 4 to 1, and it pertains to new construction. So that is a standard.
With the caveat that as an allowable, that's what scares me, is if they say, well, we have to give more easement to have that 4 to 1 in there. I think that we need to abide by the standards.
I know this one guy that's gonna do some work next week or whatever. He wants to do it right.
He called me.
Yeah, he doesn't want to have a problem like he did last year.
Yep.
If it takes more area, I mean, that's what he's gonna do. So he wants to get the slope right, the ditch bottom right. Correct some of the mistakes that were made several years ago. The ditch
And
right-
that's not gonna be very deep. I mean, it isn't very long either, so
No. Yeah.
he can do that, right? And it's Randy's land.
Yep.
And it's Randy's ditch,
Yep.
so the easement thing isn't an obstacle. But I don't think they'll need any additional right of way anyway for that deal.
But I think moving from a 12 to an 8 foot is a good idea, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
If we build a road, we're still gonna do it wider than probably 8 feet, if we can.
If you can get the right
We
of
have
way.
it right away already.
Right. And I think that's the way it should be. I think we should do it this way unless
Because we're not gonna build.
it's not possible, and then I think we should talk about it.
Like when we raised some of those grades, we had to get extra easements because we just had the original.
Yeah, you ran out of
We
room.
ran out of right away when you raised it up to.
Well, look at how wide the right of way got by me there on the highway when they rebuilt that highway in '88.
Yeah.
That thing must be 200 feet wide in places.
Right at the bottom.
In my head, we can just amend this resolution to an 8-foot bottom instead of a 12. And it would serve our purposes. If somebody's gonna do something outside that scope, then we should visit with them about it. You got a cuckoo clock to run?
What's that, Troy?
You got a cuckoo clock in there or what?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Well, we're gonna need some different terminology then, because county ditches will be. So we make farmer A do it this way. And farmer B comes in and says, I can't do it because there's a slough or whatever, and we give him permission to vary from this. Farmer A comes back and says, well, I had the same concerns, but you made me abide to the letter of the resolution, and my neighbor got to do it differently. How are we going to, is it going to be on a case-by-case basis, and what are we going to use for criteria to change? Are we going to make a decision on every last foot of ditch that is cleaned or constructed? That's my concern.
No, I think the majority of the ditches will fit in this criteria. They just need something to go by. They don't know what we want. That's what we want. If it can't be done, let's talk about it. We might let some people, if the road, if there's too much grade required, then we might let that get smaller. The bottom of the ditch might get smaller.
At what point do we allow that to happen? You see, that's what I see happening is if you have a hard and fast rule, that's fine, except that then we're going to require huge litigation at some times to maintain these slopes because we'll have the easements. If we allow variance from the rule, at what point do we allow variance? Is it a hard number where if it's 3.5 to 1 is fine and 3.6 to 1 isn't? Or is it on a subjective basis? And there's so many variables.
I don't think the slopes are negotiable.
Well, the slope or the bottom doesn't matter because the bottom is affected by the slope and the height of the road and the width of the right of way. So it doesn't really make much difference. You could conceivably have a road where you couldn't have the slopes because they would run into each other before you got the drop.
The inslope will run into the back.
Right. You'd run the inslope right at, I mean, some of these roads, if you are high enough where you slope off the road, it would almost hit the right of way on the outside. So you couldn't conform to the resolution. How do you decide when you get to not conform? When's the variance?
Depends on the circumstances.
Okay, I know.
Could you say any deviations from this resolution must be brought before the commissioners?
Well,
Or don't you want that?
No, that's what we're talking about. But then what constitutes a deviation? Where do we draw the line? Or is it just the mood that we're in that day, whether we allow it or not? And how do we make sure we're not discriminating against one person because we allowed it here under a circumstance but didn't allow it here?
There's going to be places where it's going to be cost prohibitive to do that, and is that a valid reason not to follow
Absolutely.
the rules?
Absolutely. Financial considerations have to enter into this.
Yep. And a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm. And unless you have unless you have clarity of the committee that is deciding this, and not only us, what happens 3 years down the road or 4 years down the road, and I just see so many pitfalls in trying to make every situation fit a cookie cutter mold.
Well, if it becomes too prohibitive and you can't acquire any right away, then you might have to put a pipe in. I mean, there are other alternatives.
Well, the alternative would be that we don't allow any work in the ditches other than what the county does itself or the township, and then that cures it all. And then if there needs to be a ditch running parallel to the county road, then it'll have to run on the landowner's property.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think that's the right answer.
Well, I know that. I understand that.
The county can benefit from this as well.
Because people are going to clean the county's ditches because they want to. I understand.
So to take that stance is
No, but what I'm saying is, how are we going to? We're going to have a booklet this thick, trying to determine when we get a variance and when we don't, and each circumstance is going to have to be evaluated on a foot-by-foot basis. I don't know. Wayne's going to get sick of answering the question. What do I have to? Wayne, what can I do here now? Well, I don't know. We'll have to ask the county commissioners. Well, how about over here and there's trees in the way? And can we? Well, I don't know. We'll have to ask them.
Does the water board have any? They have some control over drainage, don't they? No?
Hey, Gene.
Yeah,
We'd have to get a permit. Don't they have to get a permit to drain?
and they're writing a policy that concerns some of this, where they want a pipe laid in the ditch so it doesn't stand water.
And if they drain it into the ditch, don't we have to ask you guys if it's possible?
You know, the water board is, once the water board was formed, water district, then they are in charge of,
We have a lot of power
Water,
water,
yeah.
water.
we have the ability to appoint members to the water board, but we don't have the ability to make decisions on that anymore.
I don't think we should make it too complicated, just put in the 4-to-1 slopes, 8-foot bottom. And if they have to, then they, like Troy says, they gotta put a pipe in if they can't do it.
Well, I guess if someone has a problem with it, they can come and, I mean, we can address it when it comes up.
And we want somebody to come, like you said, every meeting saying, I'm gonna do, can I do this, can I do that? So we're doing that.
That's not gonna happen, it doesn't happen that often.
Can the county get a variance from that?
Dang right.
Okay. So how come the county got a variance and I didn't?
That's not fair.
So what's your recommendation, Wayne?
Like I said, I'd say put the 4-to-1 slopes, in slope, back slope, 8-foot bottom. I mean, that's gonna make it a little bit easier because the 12-foot bottom is a little restrictive, I think, on some things. Still possible to recover from driving in the ditch without as much chance of plowing into the back slope. There's always, it's gonna happen probably, but we want to keep the county as free from liability as we can, I guess. And we're still going to have to go through the permitting process and whatever to be able to drain and into the county road ditch, and we're going to have to get permission to do that. So. And if there's something, they can sound it off me first or whatever they want to do, and I can bring it to you guys if that's what you want, but I think you should change the resolution and adopt a new resolution.
And then
We have to rescind that, or
remove the with required easements and just let that be a given that it, yeah.
that'd be a given that they should know that the easement's only so wide, then we're gonna have to go beyond that, just like
Or can't do that.
Unless it's their own.
utility or.
Unless it's their own
land,
land,
they
they
can
can do it
bring a
everything.
ditch out there.
Okay.
As long as they have the slopes, so that,
So then if it reads, county ditches will be required at 4-to-1 in slope, flat 8-foot bottom, and 4-to-1 back slope, and township ditches will be required at 3-to-1 in slope, 8-foot flat bottom, and 3-to-1 back slope. I'll put that forward as a motion.
Been moved by John to adopt the resolution that
Do we
if
need to
people are,
resend the other one?
I don't know,
No, it shouldn't.
Just modify it.
It should
Sorry.
cancel it out.
ditches will be required to have a 4-to-1 in slope, or 4-to-1 out back slope with an 8-foot flat bottom, and township roads a 3-to-1 in slope, 8-foot flat bottom, and a 3-to-1 back slope. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Sorry, Ron. Motion carried. So we have something to tell Chad, I think was his name, right?
Hanson.
Okay.
if he's gonna contact, it's on Tuesday, is it maybe?
Okay. Okay, anything else, Wayne?
I don't think so.
Jake?
No, I think the House Bill 1176 will have to choose a project, well not have to, but it would be good to choose a project at the next meeting, because me and Wayne are going to have to present at the
27th.
Yeah, at the DOT meeting in West Fargo on July 27th. We're supposed to submit the sheet a week before.
I thought we already prioritized the projects. That was for something else.
Yes, we did.
Oh, yeah.
For Senate Bill 2103,
Okay.
and those ones we got approved. But then I think we still need at least one more project, Wayne, if I'm
What do you use the money on?
to use the money for 1176.
Okay.
And you guys are working on the water or the
Yep, the hydraulics. Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's
the
right.
weather and whatever has kind of slowed it down, so they want to wait for the water to go down if there was any wrong or anything.
So I think maybe we'll look at the stuff a little more and come to you at the next meeting and make sure we have a project and talk about it, and then we'll submit what's needed to the DOT.
That'd be the 24th.
I just thought of something else. Are you hauling any gravel out of that Mueller pit to us?
No, I don't think so.
Cedar Township just put a bunch of that on. Boy, that is some nice gravel, boy.
Which pit is that, I guess?
Mueller Pit's the one down in Barnes County.
Green Daisy and
He said he didn't want to use that one because he'd have to use a lot of township roads to get that gravel up here.
I see.
So that's what he just told me this week. I mean, I might end up using it, but
They can pull out of the one on
by the wind tower, he would like to use all that gravel there. Yeah.
Is that pretty good gravel? I haven't seen it.
I stuck it a little bit, but I
It's a nice color, I think. That gold
Yeah,
color,
pretty
kind of
pretty good.
pretty.
That orange gravel like it used to be instead of the brown stuff.
Yeah.
That's what's down in Speargrip Township. That's nice
Yeah.
looking gravel.
I had a township guy down there and a truck hauler say, we don't want that slough stuff or that stuff, you know. But it's $250 a load, so.
Yeah, that's what Murray stuck it told me.
About $14 a yard.
Okay,
All right.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Good day.
Have a good weekend.
Oh, we're right on schedule. Great. You must be Jim Gray.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you rather I stand or sit or what would you?
There we go. Oh, you're comfortable.
Great. Thank you for your time. I hand out some business cards here so everybody knows where I am. How's it going, Sean?
Good. You?
That's what's going on. Doing all right. I do thank you for taking this time out of your busy agenda. You have a lot of ground to cover, so I don't want to take up any more time than I have to. But my name is Jim Gray. I'm the new District Director for NDSU Extension. I cover 12 counties here in northeast part of North Dakota. The southern border of my district is Griggs, Trail, and Steele counties, all the way up to the Canadian border. My furthest west county is Rolette County, that Rolla area. So I've been on board with Extension since May 1st, and I've been making a point to get out and visit with county stakeholders, including county commissioners, to introduce myself and open up dialogue and make sure that Extension's adequately serving the needs of Griggs County and you're getting what you need, and make sure the state's getting what they need. Prior to joining Extension, I was a division director with the North Dakota Department of Agriculture for 15 years. I oversaw the pesticide and fertilizer division. And prior to that, I was a weed biologist with Dow AgriSciences in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a native of southern Minnesota, and my wife and I moved out here with our two boys in 2000 to find a better place to raise our two children, and it's been great. I love living in North Dakota. But I do thank you for your time. So I'd like to reiterate that we do value this state-county relationship. It's been a good relationship, and handed out my business card in case you have any questions or concerns. I want you to understand that my cell phone is on there. That's on 24/7. If you need to reach me, there's an email address there as well. I actually have 2 offices. I have an office in Bismarck and I have an office in Grand Forks. I get up to that Grand Forks office at least once a week, so I'm passing through this area of the state frequently. So if there's a need, I'd be happy to swing in and visit with you at any time that you need to. I guess let me open up to you, Mr. Chairman. Do you have any specific issues or questions or concerns for me?
I really don't. You know, Megan just came on board, so I think everybody is trying to figure out what everybody else expects, and I'm sure she's doing the same. You know, what do people expect of her on a day-to-day basis? And
Fair enough.
we're only part-timers.
Okay.
And we don't necessarily have an exact list of expectations for the county agent. You know, we have limited exposure to the county government on a daily basis. We all have other jobs, of course. But, you know, I talked to Megan on the phone yesterday, and I think, you know, over time we'll get settled in.
Good.
I think. Is that fair, Megan? I don't know.
Yeah, the extension model is, it's a good model. It's an interesting model because there are certain employees in county extension offices that are state employees. There are certain ones that are county employees. And so it really depends upon the funding structure in each county.
Well, and some are, in our case, they're both, right?
Correct. And so I'm not sure if any of you have seen this. If not, I'd be happy to give a copy to you. This is the base policy developed between NDSU and North Dakota Association of Counties that talks about roles and expectations with county extension agents. And if you'd like to have a copy, I'd be happy to leave my copy with you. But the model is those county agents are there to be the link between North Dakota State University, which is our land-grant university, and the citizens of a given county. And so they're there to be that link, to disseminate information from the university, to be a technical resource for the citizens of that county. In Megan's case, she's an agricultural natural resource agent. So that's her sort of emphasis. All of our county agents, regardless if they're agricultural natural resources, or if they're family and consumer sciences or community development, in certain counties we have those types of agents, they all have a 4-H component as well. So all of our agents are expected to work with 4-H programs, regardless of what type of agent that they are. And so the base policy spells out that in terms of agents, the county pays 50% of the salary costs for the county extension agents and the operating expenses. NDSU pays the other 50% of the salaries and all fringe benefits. And so that's how it works. It's a little bit interesting in that, for example, Betty, the admin assistant, is a pure county employee. She's paid by the county. She reports to the county. That's a county employee.
Yep.
County extension agents are classified as state employees, although you're chipping in half of their salary.
But in practice, Betty has to report to the agent.
Correct. Okay. So each county has a county chair.
Right.
In this case, Megan is our county chair.
Okay.
And it's her job, her responsibility as county chair to provide supervision and oversight of that office.
Okay.
In certain offices that have more than one county agent, one of the county agents is there to be the county chair and to be the conduit, to be the primary focal point with their county commission.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That's what I understand.
Yep.
I mean, it's fairly straightforward in the sense of code.
Yep.
That's the problem. He is quoting from a policy statement with the North Dakota Association of Counties, which is not binding. The Century Code is the binding document as far as supervision of the county agent and how the relationship works with extension. And the county has the final authority on what the duties will be of the county agent. It's spelled out very explicitly in the Century Code. You, again, that's a policy statement that was derived between the North Dakota Association of Counties, which has no binding guidance or effect on the county commission. Let me read you out of the Century Code here, because that's what happens with all bureaucracies is they are given responsibilities and duties, and then they take what they feel they should have. The Century Code spells it out. So let's just go through this, and I think then it'll be fairly easy to understand where everybody stands on this. Now, in order to have an extension agent, we have to have a vote. 50% of the county residents have to say that we want an extension agent. At that time, NDSU is required by law to bring us 2 candidates for our approval and selection. From there forward, NDSU, as long as the citizens of Griggs County, this is 4-08-04 election held. Okay. From that point forward, NDSU is responsible for in 4-08-12, direction and supervision of the extension agent. The active direction and supervision of the work of the extension agent must be carried on by the North Dakota State University Extension Service.
Yep.
Okay. It goes on to say, in the same, the Board of County Commissioners has general administrative authority and must be consulted frequently with reference to the general policy and work of the agent. Here's the crucial part. The suggestions and directions of the board must be followed when not in conflict with state and federal laws or regulations governing appropriations for extension work. So the final authority rests with the county commissioners. We'll go back here and we'll look at another provision of it. 4-08-08. All funds raised in accordance with the provisions of the chapter must be expended by and under the direction and control of the Board of County Commissioners in such a manner as it may be deemed acceptable to accomplish the purposes set forth in this chapter. So, although NDSU is responsible for the overall scope of the work, it doesn't take away the county's ability to assign duties other than the duties that NDSU assigns. And that is laid out. This got thrown in my face that the county agent in her scope of work, that this particular, what we were looking for, what I was looking for was her to handle the requests that come in for reimbursement for weed spraying, if she could document those so we could pass them on and get them paid for. And the disagreement came that was not within the scope of her work. Well, here's the position, here's how it would advertise for Megan, and I went through here, and of course, right off the bat, this position includes, but is not limited to the following responsibilities. So, in this scope of work, it's not laid out that she scouts fields or gives recommendations for chemical, but we know she does that. So we're already varying from this, but as long as the county has the ability to assign work to her, the position that she filled is flexible. We're not asking you to be our slave, nor do we want to be your slave.
Right.
But being that the majority of the dollars expended for this position, the agent's position with the budget and everything involved with it, comes from Griggs County taxpayer dollars. Griggs County taxpayers have to be assured that they're getting the best bang for the buck.
Okay.
And again, I'm fine with you. You are the experts. But when we have a small task that needs to be accomplished, to have backlash against us asking or requiring that a employee of the citizens of Griggs County perform that task is a problem.
Okay. Can I respond?
You can.
Okay, so the county citizens are the constituents that our agents
Correct.
are trying to serve. So the language you cited in terms of that we need to heed the input of the citizens and the county commissioners, absolutely, when it comes to programming. So I would say the county can assign programming duties as long as it's consistent with the mission and purpose of NDSU Extension. So Extension's mission is to do educational programming, okay? And so we just need to make sure that any of those duties are consistent with educational programming. So, for example, if a person is 100% extension agent in a county, and a county wanted that agent to work every Friday afternoon in the county recorder's office, or working on a highway crew, we'd say, well, that's not consistent with the extension's mission. And so we would either have to back off the appointment as a county extension agent or have that duty above and beyond the full-time extension job. So we encourage county weed boards to have extension agents on the weed board to offer technical advice and technical input on managing weeds and weed management. It absolutely makes perfect sense to have them there.
Mhm.
In terms of secretarial administrative support for the weed board, again, the weed board is a separate entity, and there are a whole bunch of different models that exist out there across the state of how that works. The next county over in Steele County, for example, the county agent does do that. They provide secretarial support for the weed board. But that's another job beyond her county agent duties, and she's compensated for that specific piece because it's not part of her 40 hours a week for county extension. And so my responsibility as a district director is to make sure that funds are expended appropriately, that they are consistent with extension's mission. And regardless of whether it's a half hour a week or 30 hours a week, we just need to make sure that that agent is giving 40 hours a week for agricultural and natural resource programming. That's all I'm saying.
That is not what the Century Code says. The suggestions and directions of the board must be followed when not in conflict with state or federal laws or regulations governing appropriations. Now, again, you can cite that another county is doing it. You can say that it's been done before. That doesn't change the fact that the law is the law, and these are Griggs County taxpayer dollars. And we're not asking her to work in the recorder's office. We're asking her to perform a duty that is intricate with the residents of Griggs County as far as controlling their weeds. She wants to be in charge of distributing the bugs for the weed program,
Right.
but she doesn't want to be in charge of writing down their names and keeping track of how much chemical they were used so they could be presented for payment. Again, we only have this to go by. And if you don't like this, then somebody will have to change it. But that's all I have to go by.
Okay, so one of the things that I need to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that language is as long as it's not a conflict with any regulation,
Yeah.
is I think what we need to look at, and I haven't done it, is look at the Century Code in terms of what are the width and breadth of duties of extension.
No, it doesn't say that.
In the Century Code. So I think we need to look at that first, just figure out, are there any limitations on how extension can spend their time? So I don't want to create an adversarial thing here. I need to understand what specifically you're asking Megan to do, and then I can understand whether it's consistent with delivering agricultural programming. And so, again, there's a variety of different models I think we can use to get to where you want to get to. I think we should explore what those are.
This was such a simple thing. All that happened was people were calling the extension service and asking how to be reimbursed for the chemical that they were going to spray.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't given any guidance. They were told, call your county commissioner. Now, and then when I called and asked Megan if she could just take down their names and be in charge of the administrative part of it, all of a sudden you show up here to try to defend a position that is clearly not defendable. And I don't like the fact that NDSU would dictate how Griggs County taxpayer money is spent. You just spend a little bit of our budget. You contribute a little bit of our budget. You should only be allowed to have that percentage say in how that budget's spent.
Yeah, I'm not here to defend anybody. I'm here in a series of meetings with county commissioners.
And if we want to get technical, you should probably read 408-10 and all the different
Yes.
reporting that needs to take place.
He was supposed to be on the, like, he asked me on the agenda a long time ago, just to clarify.
And
This
yep,
title.
yep.
Okay. I think we've kicked that dead horse sufficiently. But I find it difficult to believe that it caused that much of a adversarial. It's almost like we've entered into this relationship in an adversarial position, and I personally don't know why that is. It's just like.
Mr. Chairman, let me tell you how I got involved in this issue. I got a phone call from Megan, and she asked me point blank, is providing support duties for the weed board part of my job description? And I told her flat out, no, it's not. It's not. Wasn't how the position was advertised.
I mean, we're talking about a half an hour a year. I mean, holy cow! We've already wasted more than that talking about it.
Right. I understand, Mr. Chairman. So that's how I got involved. And so
There's your advertisement. It is not limited to strictly these. It gives us the ability to add on to it. That's your advertisement.
Anyway, I'll let you.
So in terms of the extension office tracking those types of things, again, my main concern is to make sure that doesn't cut into core programming hours. And if it's a half hour
I mean,
a week or a month, that's fine. That's different than saying it's 15 hours. And I think there's a way to do it. There is a way to do it. We have other people in that office that can track that stuff. We can take care of it.
I think the producers bring their receipts in, and at the end of the year, Samantha sends it into the state, and they get it reimbursed. I mean, that's as complicated as it is.
We just need a place for them to drop the receipts, and she wasn't willing to do that. They were saying, call your county commissioner. Dang.
Can I?
And he,
Yep, John, just
There was a lot of questions coming to the office, and I didn't say call your county commissioners directly. I said, please call your lead board, who happen to be the county commissioners. Because I wasn't, the first time I came up to this meeting in May, we discussed the salary and who that should go to. And it was stated that people should be just doing their job. That was the end of discussion. What is the job? What is the description of saying, people will bring in their vouchers, will you please take care of them? And by the way, I have been taking care of them. I have been writing down the names. But it's just, I wanted this to be brought up to discussion so we can understand what are the exact duties, because there is no paperwork saying who does what and what. And reflecting and looking back on other records, for Jill, it was another position. She got paid separately from the extension position. So that is what I'm going off of,
right.
and how other counties do it.
Right. And of course, we're all semi-new, and this isn't the only case that this was being done, Megan, and we don't understand it.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense, because there's no more hours being put in to take care of this, that, or this task. And it's like anybody that's ever had a job, you might come to work one day and somebody asks you to do something that's not in your job description, but it is done during the working hours that you're there. So you go do it, but you don't get paid separately from your regular paycheck. That is a foreign concept to me.
I fully understand it. There's other duties as a son. Again, I don't want to make a bigger deal of this than it has to be. Okay? I don't want to make a huge deal of this.
Yep.
I'm just saying that when state agencies get audited, one of the things that auditors look for is, are the funds expended in a way that's consistent with the Century Code and the duties of that position? And so, for example, let's use that example, that if you had a county and they wanted the county agent to go spend holding a sign on a road crew, the auditor's going to say, whoa, 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 that's not consistent with Extension's mission.
I get
That's all I'm saying.
I get that.
Yeah, and so there are a variety of ways we can do this. Every other employee in that office, well, not Lee Gunkel, she's an FMP agent, but Betty and Lusheen are both 100% county positions. I mean, there are no issues there. They work for you. You can tell them to do whatever you want to do.
They really, in practice again, they work for Megan. I mean,
I know, but they are county employees. They are 100% county funded.
Yeah.
And so there are a variety of other people in that office that are there. They could keep track of those receipts, and that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
If it turns into more, if there's a greater need here, let me lay out some models that counties have used.
Well, then we need to
Right.
then we
Then we
need
need
to
to
budget more
revisit.
time or
Either
budget more people. Or
Budget more people, or
No.
the weed board hires a support person or something, but there's a way to handle it. So
Right.
I don't want to make a bigger deal of it than what
And
it
I mean,
has.
Megan and I talked about this yesterday because I think, I don't know this, this is my presumption, people want her to provide them with flea beetles. Well, she's not our flea beetle collector. She's our resource for our producers.
She's
To show them where to go, hand them a net, and say, have fun. When that program all started back 20 years ago, John Swenson did take a bunch of us to Barnes County, and we went out and swept those, and we brought them back to our pastures. But now that we have multiple insectaries within the county, it isn't very difficult to go help yourself. You know. So, and if people don't want to do that, and they want the county to provide them via purchasing them from another insectary, then my thought is then she should give them the phone number for the insectary, and they can go buy their own.
And in most counties, that's what the county weed officer does. That's the weed officer's job. The weed officer tracks receipts. The weed officer, I mean, that's what the weed officer's duties are. So, just so you're clear, if you want someone to be upset with Megan saying that isn't part of her job, you can be angry with me because that was my directive, right? That wasn't hers.
Right.
It was her supervisor saying that's not part of your job. Okay, so if you want to be angry at somebody, you can be angry at me because that was my directive, not hers. So that's just sort of where we are. But again, let's not make this a bigger issue than what it is.
Absolutely.
Let's
not.
figure out a way to go ahead and make sure that if this is going to be above and beyond the 40 hours she gives as A&R programming, then again, there are ways to handle that. Or we have someone else in the county office do it. But to answer your question, to bring it down to closure, technically that is not part of the mission of Extension. So
It has to be. Weeds are not the mission of Extension.
education is the mission of Extension.
Well, then going and checking the fields not the mission of Extension.
Yes, it is. It's to gather and disseminate technical information.
Come on, now.
Kind of splitting hairs.
Yeah. Here's the point. NDSU contributes 1/3 of the county agent's salary to the overall. No, but you don't pay for any of the rest of the insurance, right? In an overall dollar figure, you contribute about 1/3. For the 2/3 that Griggs County citizens pay of their salary, shouldn't they be able to dictate somewhat what they get for their money? And the way they dictate that is through the county commissioners. And again, we're not making her be a secretary for the recorder. If you can't make the jump that weeds are part of agriculture, then we do have a problem here somewhere. And so this isn't about total control, but this is about sharing control. And if you make us use a employee that we already have on staff, we already have them on staff, but we are paying 2/3 of their salary. The Griggs County citizens should be able to utilize that to their best benefit. And again, it's only 3 pages, and I can't believe that you don't have the century code with you, because that is what governs how you deal with us. That's what governs how you deal with the state. The North Dakota Association of Counties has no binding control over us whatsoever.
I do understand. And again, I don't disagree with anything you say. I don't, as long as those duties are consistent with Extension's mission. And
Yep.
so I have no problem with that at all.
Okay.
But I do want to have a good and open dialogue. I do want to make sure that we know each other on a first name basis. Like I said, I'm passing through this area frequently. If you'd like me to stop in and visit, I'd be happy to. And I want to make sure that Griggs County is getting the services that they need out of our extension service, and the state's getting what they need, and that it's a productive relationship.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Any questions for Jim? Thank you, Jim. Megan?
I'd like to give a report of what the office has been up to since May 1st. I've received 61 office and phone call visits, 10 of those of which I've carried up with home visits. I've done some programming over in composting. I did this with the state at the state convention of North Dakota Garden Clubs. There were 30 people present. They really enjoyed it. I'll give another composting talk at their flower show on July 17th. I want to.
That's in town here?
The state convention was in town.
Oh, really?
Yep. And then in August, I want to look at the soybean cyst nematode, have a talk, and hopefully get some farmers to do some soil sampling, because Griggs County hasn't submitted any soil samples to the state yet, and we're marked as clean, but it's not truthful because it just hasn't been done. So major concerns that have came to the office are horticulture related and the leafy spurge. We will trying to find them. I've written 8 extension connection articles for the Griggs County Courier. I've issued 3 egg alerts in the past 2 months, and I'm still learning the roles and responsibilities and where the needs are in the community. And so far, it's the horticulture. There's a lot of horticulture calls that come across my desk, and leafy spurge. The 4-H is really busy preparing for the activity, the achievement days, and my goal for the next month is to get out and meet as many egg producers as possible, especially over the fair time. And I should have a narrative to you guys after the fair, unless you want me to present a formal presentation.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Fair starts Wednesday with the 4-H.
Tuesday there's a horse show, Wednesday there's interview judging, and then livestock registration with Dr. Knudsen. Thursday is the livestock show, Friday is the premium supper and sale. And then Saturday there'll be a 4-H petting zoo. And then release some exhibits.
Big week.
And then I guess we discussed about the weed board. Since you guys are the people on the board, how do you want to proceed? Should I have been taking the vouchers and
I think
keeping
that's it.
track?
I think that's it, and just turn them over to Samantha.
I think Samantha and Lori filled out the cost share report for the state this year, so when the next fall or whenever they quit coming in, I think they just want to buy the first of the year, right?
I think so.
Is that cost share different than what I did yesterday? Or how many?
That just is the reports that we use to do that entire report.
Or say that again?
Those vouchers that the people.
I think they just compile them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We just need a drop-off point for contact point, and it's logical that should be the county agent. That's all we're shooting for. I don't think there's any chance we're going to ask you to go on the road crew. I don't think there's any chance we're going to ask you to go on the road crew.
So signing these vouchers or reviewing the vouchers Is Megan actually approving payment for something or just forwarding it to somebody else?
They just forward it to the state. It's just a chemical
Pass-through.
cost share
Right.
weed
Good.
control program from the state.
Good. NDSU does have policies that we don't want our agents actually approving any financial distributions. So as long as it's just a pass-through, that's perfectly fine. That's, again, in most counties, that's what the county weed board, that's the weed officer does, as a
Right.
formal approval.
Well, Lori and Samantha will compile them and bring them
And
to
we'll
us for
approve 'em.
approval. And then, I mean, really, the county commissioner is supposed to approve all financial transactions within the county, so.
Good.
So bring them to my office and then give them to you and Lori to make the voucher? Okay.
It's just that most agricultural producers, when they have a reason to contact the
Right.
county, that's who they contact.
So they're just gonna keep a hopper of them, keep a stack of them and drop them off.
Yeah.
See that? Yeah,
And
that's-
if they come in and they want bugs, well, maybe Megan say, well, the bugs will work here, but the chemical will work here, and there's a program that we can do that with.
how often does your weed board meet?
Once a year.
Once a year?
At budget time usually, or, I mean, and the approvals get done at one of the county commissioner meetings, so it's, but I don't think there's a need for that. I think we've got that covered. It's just basically a point of contact. And the logical point of contact for anything agricultural, to me, would be the county agent.
You need the smoke to clear out of here so the bugs come out, huh?
Troy, just
Yeah.
thought,
Gene?
I thought previously there was even a notice in the paper if you bring these bills to the auditor. Am I wrong? This would be before your time, Sam.
Oh.
So I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know who to know if I'm right or wrong.
I don't know, Gene.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just thought maybe there used to be a notice that said bring them to the auditor. And if nobody else can remember that, just forget it.
You
I
might,
was-
well, you might be right.
Because there is like advertising money.
Yeah.
So, should I?
We're just putting an extra cog on the wheel by having them drop them off there.
Yeah, they can just drop it off at my
Well, they can
office.
bring them wherever they want.
They can bring them wherever they want, but they have to be able to drop them off. If they drop them off with Samantha, fine. If they drop them off with you, fine. But it isn't.
As long as they all get in the same bucket at the end of the day.
That's all we're looking for. The fact that I received 3 calls in one day because they wanted to know where they were supposed to do with their vouchers was a little bit aggravating.
But that's because I didn't know as well.
Well, I think when she was sitting here the first time, she got kind of 5 blank looks when she asked about what was going to happen with the weed.
I mean,
I think you just have to work out a process.
Yeah.
In most counties, again, that's what the weed officer does. The only counties I know of where extension touches that sort of stuff, Rolette County, the county agent is actually the weed officer and paid to be the weed officer. And in Steele, where they're paying that above and beyond. So just got to work out a process. Some place to drop them off, whatever, as long as you can work on a process that works and is consistent with the mission.
Do you want to inform your citizens that there is that opportunity for cost share of chemicals?
if you want, I mean, if you that would give you more interaction with the agricultural community. I mean, the more interaction you have on any level, the more it benefits the
And
residents.
do you think newspaper ads are effective?
It's probably the best idea. I don't know if they advise it, but
And Gene's probably right. It's been
I remember
advertised
bringing
before.
slips to Cindy
Okay.
or toward the office,
Well, yeah.
but it's not that important either way.
I was just trying to figure out where the ad was on file, Gene.
Or what? I
If
can't hear you
there,
because I don't have my glasses on. What?
if there was an ad on file, maybe
Oh,
you should look in your office and see if there's already an ad, and you can just run it.
Okay. Well, that's where I found
I'm
these
sure
other ones.
it's been advertised before, as Gene said, so there must be something somewhere. Might be electronic format.
So in like those type of responsibilities, just share them with the auditor.
Well, I don't know, I guess I don't know who was doing it before.
I think it was between Cindy and Jill.
Okay. So, whatever, you guys are all across the hall from each other, you can figure it out.
How do you let them know that there's availability of the bugs for the spurge? I mean, it's basically
Right now, we're all, and if they've called.
Yeah.
But
the programs are basically hand in hand. It's just one phone control over the
Where are
other.
they collecting the bugs at?
we've gone to the butte, but there's low population numbers. I contacted Barnes County and talked to their weed officer. He would let me know after today, because I think they're gonna go out, but the weather doesn't look
It's
like
usually
it.
by the dam, isn't it?
Yeah, when I went,
That's where I went.
Yeah.
Have you been there recently?
No. But the population of the bugs ebbs and flows with the
Yeah.
population of the spurge.
Spurge,
So, when the spurge comes back heavy again, the bugs will get more populated. It's just kind of the way that's been going. It's, in my observation, in my past years anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They must be about running their course now, aren't they?
I don't know if they hit the degree days yet or not.
We're at 1,300, so we still have 300 more growing degree days.
For maximum emergence. So.
Yeah. They
Most
say-
of my landlords don't have spurge regime.
The bugs last time they were distributed did a great job. Unbelievable. I've only distributed bugs once, and they just did a fantastic job. And it's a long time ago.
Yep, and mine too. I put them in choline and it just, I mean, there's still spurge out there, but it's not very thick.
It's,
Yeah, that's
that's
right.
what I've got. I've got spurge everywhere, but it's thin for the most part. And I don't see a lot of bugs. It's like they'll jump on you here and there, but you don't see plants that are toasted like you did
Yeah.
when you initially put them on.
Yeah.
I think that's all the questions I have.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
And away we go.
We'll see you, Dean.
Should we take a 10-minute? I make a motion. We take a 10-minute break. What do you think, Ron?
Moved by John.
All right, I'll call you back.
All in favor?
Sean, did you second that? Did Sean second that?
Yeah, sure. When they first brought bugs in Barnes County, they were flying around, dropping them on everywhere. McAllister brought me some bugs on 4th of July because he had distributed two big coolers. They were there to keep them flat.
Next on the agenda is Harold Rotunda.
Do you want to put it down on the phone? Is Ron on the phone?
Oh.
How are you, Harold?
Good. Yeah, hi, John.
Hello, Ron. Harold is on.
Okay, sounds good.
Hey, Ron.
Hi, Harold.
Okay. When I hand it on, I'm going to try to keep the sequence there, and we'll go back to 13, and we talked about 13 last time. And after what you said you wanted to do with the building authority and how you wanted your expenses run through, I think the number now is $49,000 for the general fund. And included in revenue, and that's the first thing that says fund equity on it, first packet, and that shows $1,331,422.93 in revenue. And that includes the money that came back from the building authority to reimburse the county for some of the expenses paid. And that showed in that transfer out that went down to the courthouse of $767,359.54. Included in that entire process of the expenses is the $290,000 that you guys asked about that went to the building authority. That showed up as an expense under the courthouse as a net number. And
Where are you at now? Wait a second, yeah.
okay, when I handed them out, I gave you guys, kind of put it in the sequence. So it says Griggs County Fund Equity, December 31st, 2013.
Okay.
This guy. So this is actually the sequence I gave it to you. So
Okay, this is my file.
That's your
That was John's file.
So if you want to do that, then the rent, if you look at, there's a page 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, which has been adjusted for showing those fund balances in those funds and those expenses. So in that whole packet, that first group, 2013, this would be the changes made to the audit report that would be issued. And the biggest change, if you look at it, would be on page 12, showing the general fund cash balance of $49,000. So if you look at the general fund cash balance in the audit report that you got from Samantha, that number is different. And that's where the transfers, according to the general fund, show all the expenses related to the county going through the general fund of the county. And that's my understanding of how you wanted to see that. So if you look at transfers in and out on that first page, you're down to very few. You're down to what Human Services does, that 310 back and forth. The Social Security Fund was short last year, so they got $20,000, $10,000 from Highway and $10,000 from the General Fund, and then the regional, or the top rank got closed out, split half into regional correction and half into the General Fund. That is the activity went through each of the different funds for the county. And that's why your ending balance now is 49,723. The fund,
What did it show before?
that one showed 186 before. Remember you guys.
What?
Okay.
So the 2013 audit that we completed a year ago means nothing. You're saying now that that wasn't accurate.
Well, I'm saying is from what you gave me for guidance that you wanted to see, this is what would show up. If you want to let 213 stand as presented, you can do that. And the difference comes is what emergency and county loan and insurance technically paid for the courthouse is run now just through the general fund. And that's when you talked about your carryover balance of 27,000, that was with the understanding that the general fund picks up all costs that relate to the county for the courthouse.
So what we're asking for is what happened in 2013. Is this what happened?
This is what happened.
Can I interrupt it? And I'm not an accountant, and I'm not going to try to make any arguments, but how can numbers be manipulated so much? Don't the numbers should be there, they shouldn't lie. They're not you're not a lawyer, Harold. You can't lawyer the numbers.
No.
They have to be there. I mean,
if you want,
they're there, and you can't just move that crap around and say what you want to say. You can't say, well, do you guys want it to reflect this way? They're numbers. They have to be there. They can't lie.
Here's the question. There's only one question. Mm-hmm. Was the $290,000 accounted for in the original 2000?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
How?
As a net number that shows up under courthouse costs, which did not change.
No, but overall in the, let's just use the net worth, the overall equity of the county was the $290,000 accounted for.
Yes, it was. And I can show you that.
And and then you use standardized accounting practices, correct? Well, I don't know which practice you use. You use the
government accounting practice.
Okay, so the $290,000 under the recognized accounting practices should have either been an unauthorized, irregular. It certainly wasn't fruitless and it wasn't wasteful, but it should have been classified as one of those and reported accordingly, and it wasn't.
Okay.
Because it fell outside of the parameters of normal procedure for the county, which was to have the transaction authorized by the county commission and to have two signatures. So that put it either into the irregular or the unauthorized category, and it was your duty as a auditor to notify us of such.
if you looked at the one page that's separate from that, you as a commission,
We lost him.
in September of 2013, the old commission, in the minutes, approved the $290,000 being spent.
No, they did not. They approved it being moved into an account. They did
Right.
not approve that. They did not approve the expenditure.
Right, okay. The $290,000, and this is the part where if you look at the building authority sheets, okay? The one that's the second pile, just says building authority. And this is where everything has to be resolved. If you look at point 1, and if all there was 0.1 on that sheet.
Yeah, hi, John. Somehow I got cut off. Sorry.
Okay, we're back.
Sorry about
Okay,
that.
good.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, you can do it.
Okay, all right. If you look at point 1, and if all they did is a $290,000 entry, every point you were talking about, John, is extremely valid and spot on. Where it gets muddy is when they reimbursed the county back. Did they reimburse the $290 back? And in the purposes of that report in 2013, the intent was to pay that money back. So when you talk about it, Jamie, you say, do I have the ability to change that? When we talked in 2014, now I might have made myself clear, and I apologize for that.
You're not a negotiator, Harold.
No.
I'm just sick of it. Let's just get somebody in here and let's let the numbers speak for themselves.
The numbers
and you can talk to whoever we bring in to re-audit this, because the fact you're bringing the building authority's business into this makes no difference. Numbers are numbers.
Okay.
This is it's insulting to me that you even come with this argument.
I'm not even arguing with you. I'm just saying is, when we talked about the money coming back, that was how the money came back in. And we talked in detail about where you wanted the money to show up in the report.
Harold, that's what I don't understand is when you have an audit, you don't want money. Why are we moving money around in an audit? That's the money, the numbers don't lie, the accounts don't lie, where the money went, that doesn't lie. We should have an option of where to put the money. I took a few accounting classes. Like I said, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an expert, but my instructors never said, well, if you want the money to show up here, put it here. If you want it to show up there, put it there. You can't do that. I mean, you can't lawyer dollars. I can go and argue in front of a judge until I'm blue, and that's lawyer. You can't do that with these facts. They're facts that are supposed to be laid out for the citizens of the county to find out where we're standing. And you can't do that.
So the money was adjusted last year 3 times. It showed up in the general fund, it showed up in the grant fund, it showed up in the courthouse. So from that perspective, I didn't move the money around, Jake. The money was moved around 3 times based on the interpretation of the county auditor where they wanted it to go. It ended up in the general fund. And that's where it was. I didn't move it in there. I didn't take it out of there. I left it in there. So there was no moving from that perspective. Now, if you want, when we talked about last year, both expense and revenue were in the general fund. And when we talked about the expenses relating to the EOC grant, the choice you had as a county is to tell the EOC it's part of the general fund, or you can tell EOC it's its own fund. That's 2 choices that you have as a county. Just like you have the choice of social service between different funds. When you look at these funds, you have a social service, a human service, and a human service 2 fund. All 3 are all interrelated. Most counties have them as 1 fund. You chose to have them as 3 funds. In those 3 funds, they are allowed to be within the accounting standards. When you have these costs and these monies coming back in, this is what You said last year, you said, let's do a transfer and show that as expense for the courthouse. And that's what was showing up in the audit. That did not change. That number is exactly the same. Included in that number is the facts of those 3 sheets that you got in front of you that says building authority. That's a combination that ran through the courthouse. Now, if you got paid from the building authority, we talk about whether there's a reimbursement, which is a reduction of expense, or a revenue. And if it's a revenue, it shows as revenue, and the expenses are shown gross. So you would show paying those people. That's what was shown. The 290 was in there last year, and as I handed out the cash report, it came out of the one checking account. Now, coming back to the point that I made, John, when you talked about that, if all you would have been talking about was, did the county make an illegal payment to an entity? If that's all that showed up on that page, you're absolutely right. And I know you guys had to deal with that come in. And the question came is, when money came back, did that money come back? I don't have any authority to decide that factor. But it went back through the courthouse fund. And that's why that number is there. And they paid for architects, and they paid, and I tried to note what they paid for. Now the question comes, and that's why I asked you last year as a board, do you want to take emergency money, insurance money, and use that to pay for the courthouse, or do you want to pay for the courthouse local share from the general fund? And everything ran through the general fund. That's what this report shows. There's no change in numbers, there has been no reallocation, there's been no dancing around. If you look at last year's report, it was issued in 2013 to this year, there's 4 numbers that changed. There's 3 transferring numbers and 1 transfer out in the general fund. Those are the only 4 numbers that changed. 2,110,535.68 operating funds of the county, and the 3,443,643.77 total dollars that the county has are both reports. I did not change any numbers. I did not create anything. I did not move anything. Those were the numbers that were there last year, and that's the numbers that are there now. And that cash report I handed out to you, which you get basically, that shows that all funds of the county were in this balance last year, which included the $290,000 going out and the $699,000 coming back in from the building fund. Do you want to see them in a different place? When you talk about, Jamie, can you and can you not do things? There are, within regulations, there are some flexible rules when you have multiple sources paying for things. And as a county, you have your discretion as to how you want to pay for it. When they made their motion last year, which was not an authorization to pay bills, I totally agree. And it should have never left the county. I totally agree. And the argument coming back is, we came back to the county. And I'm not touching that one. That is not my call. The net effect, when we talked about it, was to show the courthouse having activity last year net at the county level. There's obviously more bills paid.
The building authority spent $2.9 million.
If you look at, which page are you looking at there, Troy?
Page 4. Page 4.
Of the building authority one? Yep. Over the 2 years, they have spent $2 million. Yep.
2.9 million.
2.9, but see, part of it is the money coming back to you guys, so.
But what in the world is that number
No,
relevant to a county audit?
No, and that's why
Then why is it included there?
It's not included in the audit. This is information I'm providing you guys, so you can see
It
it.
should even be information that you are privy to. You are not the accountant for the building authority, and the building authorities is a separate entity and should have nothing to do.
Unfortunately, the way the building authority is set up, it is part of the county.
You are absolutely wrong.
For audit purposes, you have, when you control an entity, and this is the part where I don't necessarily agree with the accounting rules, but any time, what was happening in governmental accounting years ago, governments were setting up separate entities to hide things from the audit report.
Harold, let me explain to you one thing.
Okay.
A building authority that is financed by a yearly mill levy is different than this building authority. You're talking about a building authority that is financed before they build a project by a mill levy. They put money into the building authority and it becomes just that, an entity of the county or the government. This is just the opposite of that. This was set up in order to receive lease payments. So the only payments that are going to this entity are lease payments. They're not tax dollars. That's the difference in these building authorities. This is not a building authority. They named it Griggs County Building Authority. It's not a building authority. It is a non-for-profit private organization.
If you want to take all the stuff out of the county audit report, I'll gladly do that for you, John.
There is not one dime of the building authority's money listed in this county audit. You are implicating yourself. The more you try to push this position, the more you're giving me cause to think that you were part of the whole problem. And you're trying to cover something up. You should be saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I will not sign off on this. I will not sign off on this. I will not sign off on this. Here's your options. And you're not doing that. And now we get complete change in what was 2000.
Complete change. Do not say it's complete change.
Harold, give me a day to go through it, and I'll show you where you're wrong, and I'll show you where I can show it to any other accountant, and he will say, what in the world is going on here? And this is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
If you want,
should be ashamed of yourself.
No, if you want to omit the building authority stuff in the audit report, John, I got no problem with that.
How about this? How about this? I want you to include it. I want you to include the building authority's financials in this report, and then justify that.
Because the building.
Did you hear me? You include it in here and justify how it's included in county business. Do that.
Because they only exist for one purpose, and that is to serve you as a county. That's the only thing the building authority does, and that's why the way all the legal documents are set up, they do not do anything outside of county business. And
they're not doing county business. They're collecting a lease payment for a building they're renting us. They're not a building authority. They name themselves a building authority. They're not a building authority. They're not organized as a building authority. They're organized as a non-for-profit.
They're an LLC.
Yes.
Well, according to the documents that I looked at.
Show me the document. Okay. Show me the document that ties it here.
Okay, well, I'll bring it back. But I mean, if Jamie wants to say that there should be his legal opinion is that this is not part of the county, under all circumstances, when building authorities have been set up under the cookie cutter approach that they have, they've always been included in a government entity. Schools, cities, counties.
Are they registered as nonprofit corporations?
The building authorities in other places? Yeah. And they pay the $10 every year to file as Secretary of State as a corporation. And they don't file any legal documents, they don't file 990, they become part of the county, cities. No.
The fact that they're...
So your opinion is that
they're not legally part of the county. The purpose how they get included is if their whole intent is to do the business of the county, they should be included in the county. And that's, and I know what you're saying, John, from that perspective. In most cases, you don't have this split of a building and the revenue and all that other stuff.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. Barnes County Public Schools, they use a building authority to build a new school.
How did they set it up? Same way?
Same exact way.
Okay. It might be, maybe one way to figure this out is if you have some way to cite the practice standard that you have to do that. That would probably help us out some. If there's a standard, at least There's some authority, but it's not tied to the county.
He's done 4 audits now, 2 in 13 and 2 in 14 for Griggs County, and he has not included the building authority in these audits. He comes with these.
What's included in the audit?
Show me the number where the building authority is included in there. You show me the operating of the building authority in there.
No. Building authority is right here.
That is not in the official audit. That is a supplement to it. It makes no difference.
No, this is actually a supplement, John. This is actually anything that comes up after the minutes.
I'm done with you, Harold.
This is the official report.
I'm done.
But that's where it's at, and there's this building authority.
I'm done.
On page 17 and 18.
And it is not in the official it is not in the official budget of the county. It has nothing to do with the county.
No, it's not.
We receive the tax levy and we make a lease payment. I'm done. You guys do what you want, but this has to go to another. This has to go and have someone straighten this out.
Now, if you look at page 17 and 18, included in those are 4 entities that are either considered to be ultimately responsible. First one is the Water Resource District, the second one is the Fair Board, the third one is JDA, and the fourth one is the Building Authority. Those entities are included as what they call a discrete presentation because they don't run their financial checkbook through the county checkbook.
3 of those 4 agencies are created by statute. The 4th agency isn't created by statute. That's a non-for-profit corporation. Those other 3 are subdivisions of Griggs County, but the 4th one isn't.
I'll tell you, if you want to request a state auditor to give you an opinion on whether that should be included or not, I think you should do that, Jamie. Contact the state auditor. If you want to say, can a building authority be included in the financial statements of a governmental entity?
Or should it?
Or should it be, or does it have to be? And if it has to be, then you gotta look at these reports and say, this is it. Okay. 13 and 14 are done the same.
The revenue from the building authority is not included in our audits. They can't be partially included. The revenue from the building authority, the bond proceeds are not anywhere in these audits.
Yeah, they are. On page 17 and 18 in 2013, the revenue from the bonds is there. It is.
I know, but it's not an official part of the audit.
It is. That is the official part of the audit.
This is the audit.
I know.
Page 18.
Where did that money come into? Where did that money come under county control? And where is it? Where was it? Does it show each transaction going back out? It doesn't, because we didn't have control over it. All we had control over was the lease payment we made to the private entity. And that shows up. That shows up as each check we wrote, and that shows up. But the rest of it doesn't. That was an afterthought here to try to justify the fact that this $290,000 was done as an irregularity and was covered up and was going to be put back into the 2015 budget. So
no, it's
you
not.
can't make that assumption, I don't think. Go look at somebody else's audit.
I can look at this and look at the difference in the 2013 audit. What caused the difference there? How can you have 2 different audits?
Transfer money from funds, you said you wanted to go through the general fund. The county commission has the authority, and only the county commission has the authority to make transfers from funds to other funds. That's the only activity that changed. When you talk about an expense being recorded in a specific fund, Jamie, it would be nice, and I agree with it, and from the world you come from, John, I would love to be able to do it, because I agree with what you're saying. You should not have to have the ability to put money in different pots, but you can. And that's the world. Now, as last year came about, we talked about what pot you wanted the courthouse money to show up under. It's part of that total expense, always has been. Now, the 290 issue is what you talk about, John, from the perspective of should she have done it? No. Every aspect of it was wrong. And when you talked about the aspect of how the money got reimbursed, that was wrong. when you got the aspect of how construction bill is split between the building and the USC grant. That is wrong, and it still has not been resolved. The DES has not come in officially and said on every payment they have made you, they have paid this bill. And they need to do that. Ultimately, when you look at where you're going to end up at, is if you look at a building authority one, they have spent their last money. When they wrote that check out for $172,000, they now have become broke. $3 in their account. So any issue which is valid, saying is the county should not have had to pay this bill, you will have a claim against the building authority. Absolutely. On a cash basis, I can show you the money that went in and the money went out. That's why the building authority analysis sheet was done for you. And that's why I showed you in those 2 pages after that where the building authority money went and where it came from. And if you look at 2013's audit and you look at 2014's audit, that revenue and that expense is shown in the county's books on page 17 and 18, not on the last 3 pages, because it did not have a check written by the county. In the courthouse fund in 2013, and in the courthouse fund in 2014, the bills you approved and sent out are under those funds. The EOC money that came in 2014 is under courthouse revenue.
The net effect of your changes, Harold,
Zero.
no, $130,000, because the general fund now, when it was carrying money into 2014, now what we thought we were carrying isn't what we were carrying. Now it's decreased by $130,000. That will eventually come to roost at the end of 2015, because we used the year 2013 audit dollars in the general fund to arrive at a carryover balance.
If you want to leave the 2013 numbers that I proposed at $179,723 and the $1,400 in county loan, you can let that stand. When we talked, you said there should not be that much money in the general fund. If you want the money in the general fund, this is discretion of the transfers that the Building Commission made.
I said that the money in the general fund, the balance you have, is not reflective of the $290,000 check, is my exact words.
And
you said, okay, we'll go back and fix it. Now, how we fix the $290,000 check by reducing the figure by $135,000, I don't know. But again, this.
If you want to talk again, if you want to talk to the state auditor about how the building authority has been a thorn in your sides.
No, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the issues that you just said aren't correct and why those issues weren't brought up to us before now. And that's what I want to talk about. You're an auditor. You just named a whole bunch of things that weren't done correctly. Why is this the first time we're hearing about it? That's what I want to talk about.
Well, I guess I thought we talked about it when we were going through the money that went and came back last year when we were talking about the courthouse. If I did not make myself clear then, John, then I apologize.
You just said flat out, we'll read it back to you, that this wasn't done correctly, and this wasn't done correctly, and this wasn't done correctly.
And
that's the first I've heard about that.
We kept talking the net effect to the county. And I said, this was happening, and I said, you have 2 choices. How you want to handle it. And you said, run the money through the general fund in 2013 that came back from the building authority.
No, I didn't.
And then show the expense, so when DES comes in and says, how much did you spend on the courthouse, show the courthouse expenses.
I don't even understand what you're saying, so there's no chance in the world I could have instructed you to do that. What I said was an audit has to be an audit, it has to be based on raw numbers, and it has to be based on fact. There's no argument.
No, I'll stand behind this totally. I will totally stand behind this. Yes.
Which one?
What you asked for, if you wanted it. This is the 2013 numbers I brought you the day where if you said, I don't like what was shown, and I said, then you don't need to make those transfers, and I took those transfers.
That was not what I said. I said, is this reflective of the $290,000?
Yes, it is, and the 290 was reflected before, and it's reflective now, because it's through the courthouse, not the general fund. Now, can you use emergency money for the transfer? And what I talked about last year, I said, the money that they used for the 290,
Was
I wasn't
the
comfortable.
emergency fund, the insurance fund, the
And the
shingle
county loan
fund?
and
the county loan.
technically those levies are restricted. And I said, you really shouldn't use it for that. And you said, as a commission, you said that was the old
They didn't use
commission.
it?
They gave the impression of using it, but when it actually came time to run the check, they never ran the check through the bank. They never transferred the funds. So they made the impression by having the motion in September, as Harold said.
The money left the accounts.
No, the money did not leave the bank forward account. It left the account over here. It was supposed to leave the bank forward account. It was supposed to go to the First Financial account to cover the $290,000 check. It did not. It went it went in and out of the bank forward account just to show a transaction, and then they wrote the check out of the. So it didn't do what they said it was going to do. That what happened is not reflected in the audit. All that happened was they wrote a check on monies outside of the budgeted monies that were in our savings account, and that was the net effect of what happened. I don't know how that should be reflective, but it's not reflected here, and that is what happened. And whether you got all drawn up in this, Harold, and you were just thought you were working for the better of the county, but all that happened was, as you look back on it, and as I look back on it, it's fairly evident what happened, and that's not reflected in the audit. How do we make it that way?
No, I believe it's reflected. The 290 I'll talk about, John. Unfortunately, the accounting system, the best way to get transactions shown is through checks and deposits. Now,
okay,
that's why she wrote the $290,000 check, so she could show an expense and a revenue. That offset each other. That's what she's trying to accomplish.
No, Harold. In that account, in that First Financial account, it has been used numerous other times for the health savings accounts.
No, I'm talking about the other.
Listen, and the standard transaction when you use that account is you write a check out of the bank forward account to the First Financial account, deposit it, and then write the check out. This wasn't done that way.
No, it wasn't.
This check, this 290, was written on the budget, and then it went in and out of the bank forward account, so it showed it just a wash.
Nothing happened.
Well, then they went over to the other account and reduced that balance by $290,000 with nothing to make it up. So that in actuality, when you look at this was money off budget. It made the impression that it was going to be taken out of the emergency fund and the general fund, the balance in the general fund, but it wasn't because the money never left.
But you have to keep in mind, and that's why I handed out the cash report sheet. Last time we were talking about when money comes in goes out. There are 3 checking accounts, a CD, and CDs. When money comes in, it can go to any one of those pots. And Samantha handles it exactly the same. It's a revenue, whether it goes into Community First or those accounts. Now, the fact that she wrote the check out of that, and when I talked to Connie, she had no explanation. And I don't understand it either. But the fact is, when the money came back in, that's one of the reasons why the money came back in. They said, we made a mistake, we got to get that money back. So they wrote the money back from building authority into the county. That was one of the intentions of doing that.
No, they didn't. I mean, the only explanation I have is only my personal opinion, is the reason that it was done that way is because it would have had it been approved by the county commission, and for me, myself, as a county commission member, I never would have approved the $290,000 check. So,
I know you have the mechanical side, yeah.
The one that was written, by the way, with only one signature.
Yeah, I know.
And without permission of the county commission. And out of an account that was not used for budgeted money, and without being reimbursed with budget money, and against the resolution that was supposed to put the money for that check into a separate account to pay for it. Now, there's no other explanation for what happened than what happened. All I'm looking for is...
No, the fact is you can write any budgeted expense item out of any checking account. Do you agree with that?
Yes, with permission of the county commission and with 2 signatures. But none of that happened.
And they're saying that if, like I said, that's why I said, if you would have said that part 1 was the only thing that ever happened, then it should have never happened. But they're saying is we put the money back in after we realized we made a mistake. That's what they said, and we were talking about the net effect.
We look at the bank accounts, and they didn't put the money back in, and you just admitted to it that it was an in and out into the bank forward, so it didn't go back in, but it came out.
No, but if you look at...
I don't think that we need to be discussing this issue. I think that this is not a proper issue to be discussing in this meeting.
Okay, and I say, I think Jamie should contact the state auditor, and you can send him that report, and you can say, is this thing wrong?
Which one?
No problem.
Which one we send them?
The one that you...
Do we send them to be this 2014 or this one, or this 2013 or this one?
One 2013 done. I said if you wanted to do the changes you talked about, that's why I brought out.
I never talked about any changes.
And use the 2013 report you got for last time. Then the 2014 report you got this time is the only one you got. That's it. You did not get 2 reports ever. You got 1, now you got 1.
Okay, so walk me through page 4 of this attachment, even though John doesn't want to talk about it.
That just shows how the money came in, the building authority, and what bills you guys paid, and what bills, and by year. And last year, the only bill you paid was out of construction engineers, and you paid them some money when you got EOC money. So the 2013 and 2014 numbers are bills paid by the county. And these are bills that were paid the way John says they should be paid, through the commission action, and through 2 signatures, and through that checking account.
Where's the county stuff at?
The one that doesn't say building authority. So you see total building authority 2013, 2013 is county, building authority 2014 and 2014.
So the county has put $800,000 into this project.
You put $800,000 in last year, you reimbursed partially from the building authority. And that's why when I look at this number, this is a resolution issue where what expense is whose. Because you paid, and if you go back to that first page, you paid $413,399.15 to construction engineers. You also got money from the building authority for $413,399.15. So in effect, the county did not pay construction engineers last year because you got money in and you got money out. And the money in came from the building authority. You got $191,900 from the building authority to reimburse you for the craft architect bills you paid. $49,000.55 was for the different bond costs. The lawyers, the bond counsels, and the discount. So that is ultimately the resolution you have to have as a county some point along the line with whoever, is you have to reconcile these 4 areas and say what actually happened.
So then the total area, you totaled the building authority and the county.
Right.
So we don't have a breakdown of who in the end.
Because I don't have it. I don't know whose is whose. Because I can't,
we got it listed separately.
But see, DES has paid you for some stuff but not other stuff. I'm telling you, these are the checks you wrote out. What this report is an activity of checks written by the county.
So,
period.
How much reimbursement have we gotten, John?
What's that?
How much reimbursement have we got?
$860,000. But Troy, those are just in and out accounts. That has no relevance in this whatsoever because it's an in and out. We paid it, we got it back. So the net sum to the county is 0. That's fine. None of that makes any difference. We're not arguing about
who was supposed to pay what, and who paid, we're only arguing about who paid what. What did the county pay? That is a part of the financial statement. What the building authority paid makes no difference. So which audit is right here? Which one? Which 14?
I'm saying the 2013 and 2014. I'm standing by, you send those to anybody.
No, which one is which one? I mean, you gave me 2 and 14. Which one?
If you say you don't make any change to 2013, then the 2013 audit you got, that Samantha gave you, that I gave you last year, is still, the total numbers are still.
How do you have 2002, 2014?
Because we have the one I presented, he presented to us
only
last week.
Very dry.
So which one?
Well,
the one I brought out today.
Okay, so the one you brought out today is 186,000 on general fund balance. Yep. And now which 13 is right? You see the trap here, don't you?
No.
Because
what I'm asking you is, that's why before I finalize the 14 audit, my answer to you is, do you want to use the original 13 numbers with the transfers coming out of the different funds, or do you want all the transfers coming out of the general fund?
Okay. The 13 audit, the original 13 audit has to go with the preliminary, you call it 14 audit you gave us last week. Those numbers
I don't agree, because
it has to because it's decreased the general fund by the same amount that it was decreased in the 13 audit when you adjusted it.
Yep.
So you can't use the original 13 and today's 14 because there's a discrepancy.
This year's 14s will change. On the final audit report you will get, we'll have carry over the 13 balances from the original audit, because since you said you didn't want to change it.
But so the one you gave us today was reflecting the changes of 13.
If you wanted to make them from what you said at the last meeting. Now again, if there's a misunderstanding between the two of us, I get that.
I never said anything like that.
no, I did. I said whatever happened in 13 happened, let's leave it there.
That's right. So Harold, this 13 audit, the original one,
Yep.
if we want to use that, then the audit that you gave us today will have to be redone again.
Before numbers changed, that's it. And if you want to say those 4 numbers are critical, then they're critical.
They're very critical because it come 15, when we close out the books in 15, now we are going to be short by the $135,000.
You are going to have the discretion of the county loan money, the emergency, and the insurance reserve money as part of your budget.
Yeah, but that stuff can't work its way into the general fund after the fact.
As part of this budget process, you can pay general fund costs.
I'm talking 15. Right now, the budget that we're operating under right now is going to end up $135,000 short. And you're saying that money is going to be in the other funds. We cannot bring that money into the general fund at the end of the year to balance that out. That's not possible. So the general fund will be short because we have budgeted money into the anticipation of that $135,000. And there's no way we can bring that money out of those funds you talked about into the general fund.
Finalized in 14's report is what you're accepting. If you want to accept it with the 186, you accept it with 186. That's what the purpose of this meeting today is, to say, do you want the general fund budget to be at 186 or not?
I want it to be at 9,986. Can we do that?
If you move, just like you want to talk about the reserve last year, or the last time we did? So, remember when you said the general fund had a 0 balance and it should all be in reserves?
Harold, I'm so confused now. I can't.
No, but if you want to,
I'm so sick of having words put in my mouth.
No,
Harold, I think what the intention of every commissioner is for it to reflect the accurate finances of the county, and for us not to say, well, can we move it here, move it there. We want to know where the county is.
Well, where do you want to pay for the courthouse local match? Because if you use last year's numbers, you talk about right or wrong, John. I don't see how you can use county loan money to pay for the courthouse.
But that's what they did. It was a resolution passed by the previous.
This is the part where I go back to Jamie's comments. can you do something just because you do something? And when we talked about it, saying if the commission said we're going to do that no matter what, my answer back to you, I don't think you can do that.
But it was done before we took office.
But when we talked about the transfers at the end of the year, he said, my answer to you, just like when John asked me, why don't we talk about this? When I talked about this last year, I said, they made transfers that are not defendable. Do you want to stand behind them, or do you want to reverse it? And you said that was their choice, not ours. We're not going to touch it. And when we talked last time, he said, again, I said, these are monies that technically are in all these different buckets. And you say, what's the right number? I would love to say there is only one number you can possibly have. I can't say that. Because as a commission, you have discretion as to how you do things.
So they transferred emergency funds, shingle funds, all that stuff into the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But they never spent it.
They did too.
No, they didn't.
They didn't.
That check was never.
That never checked. It never went out of there.
But see, the question comes, is should it have gone in the general fund?
That's
or
what it should reflect.
No. It doesn't matter which checking account it's in.
It matters which fund it's in because because we use the carryover in the general fund for the following years. And if the money is off in one of the funds that we can't transfer to, then we're screwed. The general fund is short and there's no way to reimburse it.
I understand that.
That's the problem. They left the money in the general fund. The general fund ended up only, they put $190-some thousand into the general fund on paper. They left it there. When the books when it all said and done, the carryover was only $29,000. They couldn't have took it out or it would have been short. Is that a fair explanation?
29.
We carried over, out of 13, we carried over originally carried over $29,000.
Or 27, whatever.
If they would have taken the money out.
If
they would have actually taken the money out. But they didn't. The check never, the general fund was never decreased by the $290,000 check because it just went into the checking account of the building authority, of the bank forward and back out. It was just a wash.
No, that's the mechanical side, not the actual side. When they did that, the reason they did it was...
Where did it come back up to?
Huh?
Where did it come back up to?
To the other side of it, went in as a debit and came back out as a credit. The checking account balance never
Just went in a
changed.
circle. Didn't do
That's
anything.
fine.
Yeah.
That checking account, no, that checking account. Then there was another check written for $290.
The checking account balance never changed.
They're two different things.
Right. Checking account.
So they debited all those accounts. Where did the credit go? There's two sides to each
Credit
transaction.
cash.
Huh?
So they debited basically the transfer expense and they credited cash when the $290 went.
Outside, see, that would be correct, Troy, in a normal accounting position, but they took the money outside of the budget. They brought non-budgeted money into the equation by doing it that way. It didn't affect the overall net worth or balance in the county.
The same.
But in effect, they brought $290,000 that wasn't budgeted into the budget because they offset the 290.
They debited accounts that were budgeted.
Right, the shingle fund, the emergency fund, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
and it showed up in the general fund.
It wasn't a budget.
The general fund.
Let's just talk budgeted money. They were moving budgeted money around as if they were going to take that budgeted money and write a check and transfer that over into the non-budgeted money. They didn't do that. They wrote the check and put it back into the budgeted money and then wrote the $290,000 check, which in effect overshot the budget by $290,000, didn't affect the overall cash balance of the county, but it gave them $290,000 to work with outside the budget they didn't originally have. That's what it did. That's why the cash balances stayed the same.
The checking account balance and the cash balance went down $290.
Right.
In total.
The cash balance went down.
$290 because money went to the building authority.
Because what happened was they debited those budgeted accounts and they credited the general fund.
I want to make sure when you use the word budgeted accounts, what do you?
Well, the shingle fund, the emergency fund.
No, the overall
That's what I
budget.
said.
The overall budget.
Because it wasn't budgeted, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, well, no, the overall budget was added to by the addition of that $290,000 check written out there.
No.
Yes, it was.
Shouldn't have changed the overall budget. All they did was move it down the sheet, right?
No.
No, the expenses increased by $290,000 of the county.
But the income didn't?
Right.
There was no income, because you literally sent money to the building authority.
Right.
So if that was the only transaction you had, as a county, you lost $290,000. Period. And that's what I'm saying, the point when you keep saying that is true. Now the problem they have is they said, now we'll reimburse you for costs incurred, but but some of those costs are yours. So they paid you exactly what you paid construction engineers, $413,000. Now in theory, they didn't owe $413,000, right? Because they're only paying a portion of the construction engineer's bill. That's where the DES pays part of it. The building authority pays part of it. So they should have never, when construction engineers sent you the original bill, they should have only sent you a bill from the county for your portion. And they should have sent the building authority a bill for their portion.
We got to the right point. He said just exactly what I've been saying all along. The cash was decreased by $290,000. Whether that should be reimbursed will be fought out in court.
That's right.
Will that will be fought out in court, and that shouldn't be any of your concern, either, by the way. And it should not come into account when doing this audit. You said it flat out. The cash reduced by $290,000, and that is correct.
And you have to decide who's going to pay for the $290,000.
The people that took it.
No. What I'm saying is, in the budgeted funds, do you want? And that's what we discussed. It was, should the general fund take the entire hit until it's resolved legally, because somebody has to take the hit now. And in the past, they said we want 4 funds to take a hit: shingle fund, insurance, county.
They didn't. None of those took the hit. They took the cash from outside the 2013 budget by writing a check and not reimbursing that account. They reduced the cash by $290,000. You said it flat out. You can't reverse that anymore.
No.
I can't help you get tangled up here, but that is the end result.
Well, look at the fund balances. Those fund balances got decreased.
Yeah. Those fund balances got decreased.
And cash got credited. And then a check was written, and the cash got decreased by $290,000.
Yeah, the cash got decreased by $290,000. Right?
And the fund balances got decreased by $290,000.
But he's making the argument that was okay because we owed the building authority money, and that's there's no bill, there's no nothing squaring that transaction. From a strictly accounting side, there's only one side to it. The cash was decreased by $290,000.
That's what needs to be reflected.
I don't even care, because we were going to have to put in the $290,000 sooner or later for the EOC match. And we've done that and more.
We did. And
all I'm trying to see is how much more have we put in, and who is going to pay for the rest of the building. That's what I care about.
And you'll never find that in Harold's office.
All this reflects is the actual cash activity that happened. Remember last time we talked about receivables and transparency and all this other stuff. And if you wanted to, at that point in time, if you said we're going to do on an accrual basis, we're going to show a receivable, you'd show a receivable rather than expense of $290,000. But on a cash basis report, the only thing you do is it takes a hit. You spent it, it shows as an expense. Now, if you want to reflect,
where does it say in here that that was not an acceptable way of doing business in a government entity?
If you look at the footnote,
the terminology is it was either unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, or wasteful. And then the next category up is fraud and embezzlement. But that's how they approve accounting practices. So it was either unauthorized and irregular. And according to the practices, approved accounting practices, when you come across a transaction like that, you are supposed to immediately notify the people you're doing the audit for, and you're supposed to highlight that transaction. That wasn't done.
If you look at, there's a single sheet, and this is the one thing that after talking to Troy, it says, Griggs County notes financial statement, note 13, building authority. And this is kind of things where when Troy's talking about it, this is what you need as a commission, this is what you want to add. And at this point, John, you want to put in there in this footnote, it was whatever term you want to use, it'll go with it. And I put in there that $290,000 was approved by the commission. Again, that wasn't you guys. That was September, that was before you guys. Now, if you want, and this is your report, if you want to say in here, this transfer was, I will gladly put that in that report, because that's where you're going to show it, and that's a point where it was spent. As a cash basis report.
But this only tells a fraction of the story.
No, I want you guys to expand on it and do it. This is a starting point, and you tell me what you want to put there.
We hired you to do the audit. You tell us what.
No, this footnote is how much description you want to have what happened.
This is where I have a problem, because you're the auditor, Harold, and it shouldn't be our responsibility to tell you as auditor what we want in an audit. The audit's supposed to come from you. It's written by you. It's signed by you.
Actually, if you talk to any firm, technically these are your financial statements. They stress that so strong now, is that I cannot tell you. I can offer suggestions, and that's just a starting point. Now you can sit there and say, this is a transaction that happened, and it was wrong. We don't approve of it, and we're going to do something.
Why do we hire an auditor to audit the books if it's our problem?
How would this work if there are five commissioners that were the most 5 corrupt individuals in the world and said, this is where I want an audit? So that's what you're going to put in an audit, even though they did absolutely everything wrong and lined their pockets full of money?
If they personally benefited, Jimmy, that's different. When they made a choice to do a process, you can argue whether it's right or wrong, and that's when John goes through his pecking order. What level is this?
I know, but the way you wrote this.
No, it's a starting point for it. That's what I'm saying.
It looks like, well, yeah, we owed them the $290,000.
No.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like you're working for them. That's what it looks like.
No.
That's what it looks like. Because if you go through this accounting, there's been $3 million spent on this building or whatever, and they only had $2.2 million. The county has put in. No, I got that wrong.
No.
The county's put in $1.3 million, of which about $800,000 of it's been reimbursed by the DES, and we owe them money? Really? Now you sound like Keith Munson.
No. All I'm saying in this report, Troy, that is a fact of what the commission did. They approved transfer. It didn't say for an expense they owed. That's all this. The motion was made to transfer $290. That was it. That's what this says. Now, if you want to add in there saying this $290 should have never been made, it has no basis, you can add that in a footnote. You could say, as the commission is currently reviewing this transaction and determining.
We're not the accountants. We don't know.
You want to say that? How do you want to say?
Is it accurate?
The financial statements are accurate because the money was spent. Now, if you want to go and set up a receivable or payable, then you have to argue whether you have a legal claim for that money coming back. That's a different story.
I don't even know that we do. I just know that
and that's what I'm saying.
Done properly.
This audit was done showing the money you got, the checks you wrote, and the money you got back. And does not make any judgment. And that's not my place, as John has pointed out many times, what you have going on between you and the building authority. All I can say is, the building authority deposited in the county of books $699,000. Should they have? It's irrelevant to me. In this audit, all I say is they brought in $699. You wrote them a check for $290. Is it relevant? They approved, the old commission approved that bill. So when you talk about, was it authorized? Hey, I don't think it should have been done at all.
No, that makes any difference. Let's quit this. Let's just hire another auditor Let's just let the numbers be what the numbers will be. And then if Harold wants to come back and argue about this and that and how we can do what we want, let's let somebody else argue with him, because I'm sick of it. This is ridiculous. This is not an audit. This is some kind of protracted negotiation between us and the building authority with Harold in the middle of it trying to justify their position. This is ridiculous. It's a waste of my time and it's a waste of the county's time.
I have nothing to do with the building.
Well, I'm gonna have to read this anyway, so I think we just move on.
Do we table this? Table.
What's that?
Do you want to table this till next meeting?
Oh yeah, make a motion to that effect.
I'll move we table the 2014 audit.
Been moved by Sean to table the audit, and so we give us a chance to review it until the next meeting. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion?
I'm not going to review it because I don't think it's worth the paper.
It's up to you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
If you have any questions during the process, make sure you get hold of me.
All right.
And answer.
Okay.
Thank you, Harold. Yep.
Ron, I'll email you the reports that Harold handed out.
Jamie,
Oh, yeah.
have you looked at this?
I have.
I
I've
mean,
got, well,
do you know anything? I mean,
other than what's written there, no.
then we don't have nothing to talk about.
Well, other than I contacted the Insurance Reserve Fund, they've appointed an attorney already to take care of it this afternoon. And
If there was an investigation, how come nobody else was?
well, I don't know if it, usually what happens is they make the claim, it gets with the Department of Labor, what the county can decide to do based on, I guess, the Insurance Reserve Fund will do their investigation of it.
So she hasn't done anything?
She hasn't done any investigation. She hasn't done. What happens is it is sent to the Department of Labor, they make the claim, Insurance Reserve Fund will take a look at it and they'll decide whether they want
So
to
they'll come and
mediate.
talk to Kelly?
Yeah, they'll speak with Kelly, or the attorney will decide whether to mediate it or decide whether they're going to fight the claim, and at that point, that's when the Department of Labor assigns an investigator, and they are over a year old from my previous experience, so it's nothing really to be terribly concerned about. We're covered by the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund. It's just so you guys know what's there and what's there.
Is she asking for anything in particular?
Not that I'm aware of that. I got this right before I came here and contacted them right away to make them aware of it.
More bureaucrats. Okay. Okay. Social services appointment. Sean's social service appointment expired on the last day of June, so we would need a motion to reappoint him for another year.
I move that we reappoint Sean as social service board.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by John. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes. 2016 budget.
Okay, I have provided you guys with some reports. If you look at this one was the one that you guys used, or the format that you guys used last year for the budget process. All the departments filled it out. The other reports that I have, they have the colorful stickies on them. One's revenue, one's expense. I asked that we use these instead of the other sheets because these come from the core programs.
there's gotta be something better than this. You can't just have one number.
What do you mean one number?
Well,
Just a total for the budget, or?
Okay, she branded me this. In order to do a budget properly, the department heads need to turn in a detailed accounting of what they did in the past. And then line by line, then we scrutinize that and see and use that to come with a total budget number for the next year. In order to be assured that we're doing this correctly, we need to know how much money was spent last year for paperwork and things like that.
Isn't that the 13 we had this?
that's just a budget number.
That's just yeah. See, they need to, the department heads each need to turn in
An itemized budget.
itemized proposed budget.
Okay.
Yeah. And this becomes after the fact. So say we come with this total right here for the, what is the calendar? I mean, say this is a budget number. Then say this is the auditor's budget number.
Okay.
That would become the balance of the auditor's budget number with all these line items underneath it. And then as you spent these line items, it would decrease this budget number to nothing. So
This is
there you go.
the adopted budget for 2013 for the commissioners.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what was spent. That was the balance in the account at the end of the year.
Correct.
But you can't budget for a future year with one number.
The spent column should be a very long itemized.
You come to this number by doing all these.
Oh, because
Is there something in this
Isn't there an
is the software
individual-
something like this in the software that we can, a blank form?
To me, there should be a page like that within the software
And go from
that you
software.
give to Bob and you give one to Connie and you fill it out yourself.
oh, because this is what Kelly was telling me. Because then
Well, that is-
my auditor's salary is this one. This is what I had for last year. This is what I spent. This is the balance. This is what I asked for. Then my deputy and my help. And so then this is.
Right, but look how much more detailed this is.
To come up with those same numbers.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Supplies,
Travel,
travel,
education,
overhead,
whatever,
Okay, so you guys still want to use this one?
or somewhere.
Well, I would like,
There's gotta be something within that
you'd
government.
have to talk to Kelly, but tell them we're planning the budget. We're not reviewing the budget. This, to me, is like a monthly report that you
It's like
hand
a-
out and say, here's what we budgeted and here's what we spent so far this year.
Okay.
I mean,
That tells you how you're doing on the budget that you already put in place.
right,
Yeah.
to me anyway.
See, in order, a budget isn't, here's X amount of money, go spend it. A budget is, I need this and this and this, and it adds up to an X amount of money, and that's
Right. But he was saying that you would put in like the original. That's what I would propose that we get for like commissioner salary. You guys would say you wanted this.
But it has to be more itemized than that. I mean, you don't just use one number.
Okay.
You could get to that number
This
by filling
number-
that out.
That's reverse. So where's the committee? Okay, you don't, this number here? Let's just say this is a total commissioners.
That's the balance in the account at the end of the
Yeah,
year.
okay, let's say it's the total
This was
commissioner's
budget,
number.
This is what the expense was. This is what's left in there.
To get to this number, you would add up all the lines of
That.
this to get to this number, rather than take this number and break it up into these lines. Because this is just spending, this is just a lump sum and then figuring out how to spend it. This is figuring out what money you need, and it adds up to a lump sum.
Okay.
You arrive at that beginning number that by doing this, it'd be, that would go.
Okay, then I was interpreting this wrong because I thought the account total was that ending total.
It is.
It is, but
you
to
can't
arrive
get
at
there-
this,
you can't get there without that.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
See, you want to take this number and you'd like to rate it in here, and then you'd like to break that $56,000 up out of all these line items, right?
Right, but then
Okay.
it would just be the commissioner's salary and then the commissioner's travel that would go up
You're
to
right,
that.
but the correct way to do it is to figure out exactly what the commissioner's travel will be, exactly what the commissioner's salary will be, and then add it all up and come up with a number.
It's still a budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Estimate what it costs.
Yeah. It's easier to do it here's a lump sum to go spend it, but that isn't prudent.
Okay.
That ensures that you'll spend everything.
Yeah. Whereas the whole thing is,
You kind of gotta go at it from the other end. It's like, I need to do this.
See if he's got something like
this,
that.
it's gonna add up.
I don't like what he did.
Okay.
I mean, but that's why we get to the end of the year, we gotta make sure we spend the budget, because we won't get it, and that's what they're doing it that way, that's how they do it that way.
And it's easy.
Dang it. Do I get free throws?
No, that tax director position, do we need to interview somebody?
We got,
I saw there was a new one.
yep, we did get another one. So the, ad ran in,
Is it done being run though?
yep, it is.
What was the deadline?
The deadline was today.
Oh,
We
okay.
might have some more.
Let me see.
So we'll wait.
Did it go into this week's paper yet?
It
or
went
not?
in last week's paper.
So this is one we've had before.
Yep. And then the other lady
There
was
was
the new one.
one new one.
Do you know that person?
I don't, but.
Do you know? No. It seems like that name was familiar for some reason.
Shorter gal, dark brown hair.
What does her
Not
husband
me.
do?
We'll meet.
I have no idea.
We'll meet him.
Okay. Pledges? I didn't see that in here.
That's Connie.
Oh, Connie?
These are the three banks, and they've, so I'll look at them, and I just need to initial them once they're approved. Initial and date,
Why, we don't need to approve those.
January, well, you,
That's a state law, the banks are required
yeah,
to do
but
it.
you're required to look over them January and July. So, that's why I bring them up here.
Are they reflective of the money that we have on account?
Less the FDIC insurance.
So each one of them is 250 out of.
Oh. June 26th was the deadline for that application.
Sorry, I didn't mean to switch.
So we're not gonna get any more.
Okay. So, what would we do?
I need them, apparently. They don't pledge directly to the county?
Bank North Dakota, no, we're in a pool.
No, this is Bank North Dakota. I mean, this is.
Bank Forward.
Right.
Yeah, so we're in a pool with
They pledge it to the bank or the board?
No, they pledge them to a pool.
Oh.
So that must cover other counties, but I don't know how we know what chunk of that's, I mean, how do we know? Oh, they tell what the total deposits are.
Yeah.
13.3 million, and they pledge 15 million worth of securities. Oh, I can't tell what our, there's no total by bank in here.
There is on my monthly report.
Yep. In here.
That's what I'm looking at.
Farmers and merchants, let's see, citizens 1.2.
It's all the way
Oh, no, that's
over to the
down
right
forward.
hand.
Citizens 1.183, bank forward 961,000. What do we have there?
And those are the numbers at the end of June, so it depends on what date they have as their report.
Right.
But there's more than one bank forward line item.
But there's only one total for bank forward. Should be. At the end, the bank forward total is 961,780.
Yeah, that's what
But there's a bank forward down 7544.
Where?
Isn't that CL of
Clerk of court. Well,
Clerk
that
of
account,
Court bank
yeah.
forward? Okay, well, that's county money. And F&M, you gotta add those two together. 270, so it's 3.
F&M, we don't have anything pledged with them, I don't believe.
County CD, F&M, SB.
Well, they better have something pledged for you because they have.
Is F&M, SB, what does that stand for? Yeah, County CD, F&M, SB, Sharon Bank.
No, it's Farmers and Merchants Bank of North Dakota. They haven't changed
Farmers
it.
and Merchants State Bank.
State Bank,
Yeah,
right.
there is no Farmers and Merchants.
I haven't changed my report.
$376,000, the combination of the two. 377,400.
So F&M needs to have 125 or 30,000 pledged for you.
Alright.
They don't have any?
Nope. I need to call.
Did you ask them?
No.
I mean, Shawnee checks us every Friday. I bet you they do.
I hope so. I will call.
Well, it's our problem. It's not your problem. We have a contravention. If we don't have pledging, adequate pledging, it's a contravention. Griggs County Treasurer, pledged. Why would they pledge $34,000? I don't get that shit.
So what's the remaining dollars left on the budget to be spent? Do you have a total on the 2015 budget, what's been spent to date, a total?
By like line item? Or by?
No, the total.
Is that shown on my expense report?
What would be the total expenses?
Well, the whole thing, yeah, the budgeted, that doesn't matter. I'm just gonna compare the budgeted, money spent to date, the money left to be spent, subtracted from the.
Money left to be spent is 587, 750.
Yeah, final budget. It's got the original
Okay.
adjustments and then the final budget, so.
Is that the general fund?
That was as of
This is the total,
as of the 23rd.
everything.
That's the total of all account balances?
Did you find what you're looking for?
Yep.
First Financial is just barely pledged.
So, what was it, 5?
Is that number going down?
754, 41. So that's the total.
What date was their report? I don't think I've gotten an update from them. have I?
Most of it presents, and a lot of it
Is
presents.
that April? Yeah.
A lot of it is presenting in
I have to ask her for an update.
What's our balance at Citizens? 1.2 million?
That's the maturity of these balances.
And I just got theirs today, this budget report.
That's as of
And this is
6:30.
considered, this can be then considered operating money, correct? Basically, it's balances and I don't see.
We need a motion to approve these pledging reports with a request to check with F&M in North Dakota.
So moved.
Is there a second to the motion? Motion by Sean.
I second that.
Seconded by Dale.
What's
Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion?
this?
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
This number
Aye.
plus
This
this.
number.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, now we'll go to the new courthouse, old courthouse, slash EOC slash update.
Thank you.
Bob and Connie.
Just give that handout, the front page, I sent Debbie an email a couple days ago, and I had trouble with her email before, it didn't go through, so I called her the day and asked her to respond. Just asking what absolutely is needed to finish the project up, and that was my reply to her. And then the back 2 pages, we've got, there's a spreadsheet Connie put together.
The last page is just basically a listing of what we got and when we got it from DES, and then what had been paid out. And I only went as far as what was paid out up to February 24th. So I don't have the settlement or any of that on that report. The middle page, though, the EOC project, that kind of splits when we've gotten, what we've gotten from them and whether it applied to the construction engineers pay requests for other costs. But the important part is right down at the bottom, the original amount of the grant and how much DES has paid and what's left. So basically, what's left to come back to the county for the 75% share would be $87,489.70.
And we basically, the $21,000 our share of that, I think there's $25,000 in that account that actually is Griggs County, or is tied to this project. So we'll have enough for the 25% match, because some of the money that came back in that EOS, from the DES, was money that we took and paid to, the building authority's portion of it, and then we got reimbursed when it came back in. It still needs to funnel back into the general fund. So right now, what's the balance? Do you have? I don't see it quickly. Do you have the balance in that EOC account, in the DES account? Excuse me. The money that
the EOC.
The EOC, yeah, that account balance where the payments come into.
Shouldn't it be on this?
It should be on a monthly report.
Right.
June report.
Where do the DES payments come into what account?
The EOC grant.
Right. What's the balance of that?
Copy of the revenue report?
DES grant expenses.
Yeah. Big account balance.
This is expense meeting.
Yeah.
general fund there.
Oh,
In the general fund.
EOC grant,
that one.
Yeah, EOC grant.
All depends on how they do that account, but it might have a negative balance.
minus 243,000. But that's just a deviation from budget number, isn't it?
Right. That's a deviation from budget number.
This isn't a balance sheet.
No.
This is a budget report.
You don't have a balance sheet?
I just have revenue and expenses.
Yeah, account balances, but that's okay. I think, Ron, what is in that account? Do you remember? Ron's gone. Do we have any outstanding reimbursement requests?
No, we started one, we've only got 2 bills to send them. The K&J flooring from April, and then Schultz plumbing heating from June, unless there was some you paid today.
Whole class.
Oh yeah, whole class.
Whole class, okay, so that's what, these two is amounts to $12,129.79.
The coat
What?
about 900.
$12,129.
There's a Schultz plumbing in there too.
Yeah.
1,600 and something.
Yep, there, it should be Hope Glass, Schultz Heating, Cooling, and TJ's.
Repairs to start with, and they rejected it, did we get that fixed?
No, we haven't checked with
But
them.
we will, I mean, it's just merit by receipt, so.
That-
Was there any bill paid today for DOC or?
There was a,
Hope Glass was one.
there was,
Schultz.
Hope Glass, Schultz Heating and Cooling, and TJ's Electronics.
So we'll call them on Monday, then we can on the way.
Then you'll have to have Schultz reissue
Reissue
that
that.
stuff.
Who's the contact person at Schultz?
Floyd.
I don't
You got his number?
I don't have his number, but I know him.
You do?
You give me his number?
Yeah, I can get his number. Uh, 652-5906.
Okay.
And the work number is 652-2076. You still there, Ron?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right.
I told him that the air conditioning units were wired in.
Okay.
I talked to him yesterday.
Can we go over this? This page?
Yep.
I'm looking at C, and I don't agree with C. I think it's 100,000.
Well, it's okay. The only, the copy of the occupancy permit, where does that come from? We don't have an agency that provides occupancy permits, do we?
I am guessing it's the insurance. Helps fill that out.
Okay.
Because they're the one, the reason for the occupancy permit is that the building's safe. That's one reason for that alarm thing, because someone's there to monitor it. So, you know.
You don't need an occupancy, you don't need an alarm monitoring service to occupy a building, Bob.
Troy, I'm not here to argue, I don't give a shit. That's what they're wanting, so if you got a problem with it, figure it out.
Who told you that? Why do you think that?
The state said they need occupancy permit. It's right in front of you. Then it come from me. I don't care. It's not my problem.
You
I will help
just,
you
you
with
just
this
said
one.
you need a monitoring service to get an occupancy permit. Where?
That didn't come from me. That come from the
It
insurance.
just came out of your mouth. I heard it.
Troy, it's been part of the project from day one. They had to have a monitoring service with the alarm system. I don't know where it came from. I didn't develop that. Okay, I'm tired of getting my house beat for these things I had nothing to do with.
Well, you make it up as you go, Bob. That's what happens.
Make it up was like, oh, what? Did I make this up? This comes from the state. You asked, I got it.
No.
It's right in front of you.
We don't, the reason I asked the question is, we've kind of researched it a little bit, and I don't know where an occupancy permit comes from.
I don't either.
So that's because we need one, and we've asked the question, and they say, well, your local building, and we don't have any of that.
Can the fire marshal sign off on something?
I don't know if that's the same. I don't know if that's the same or not. So, yeah.
You know, I would guess if your plumbing certificate has passed, and you've got your electrical certificate has passed, and your alarm system is done, I can't imagine you can't get occupancy. I don't know what else is left. You know, if the grounds are finished and the insurance company comes on.
I suppose it's like a building inspector and
Right.
a big
But we don't have that.
But yeah,
I'm sure a big part of that's gonna be your insurance company, because they're the ones that are gonna be carrying the potential loss, so if the building meets their specifications, that's the only thing I can think of.
Well, can you get clarification from Debbie on that? If a certificate of insurance will qualify that? Okay.
Yep.
The letter, I assume that being we can't get a hold of the building authority for anything else, we're not going to get a letter of occupancy.
You can't get a hold of them?
They've been served 4 times, and we've had no response all 4 times. So letters have served them. Have we? Has there been a response?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. So how can we get a letter from the building authority allowing Griggs County to take possession?
I don't quite understand why we need that. It's our building.
Well, technically,
Technically, we leased it from them though. It's our building that we leased back.
I see.
how would we go about? Who's the contact? I mean, I can certainly do it. Who is now the contact on the building authority? Who is there a building authority in?
Yeah, Ron Halverson's still the chairman.
Okay, so I mean, we just what does the letter need to contain?
Just the fact that you need a letter from them allowing the county to take possession according to the DES.
Well, I think we should probably have something that we're in good standing and that we paid our lease, we're current on our lease payments.
Well, I mean, just can't we just send them a letter just to this point? We need something saying that we can take possession. I don't think we need to have them, and it's common knowledge we paid the lease, we have the check. So
yeah, but I mean, I would say that would be what's, I mean, if they're withholding the building for us and we've made that payment, that's.
Well, I mean, I think we just send a letter. We would like permission to occupy the building, the EOC portion of the building. Send it, and on no response, we can't do anything about that. So then our response to, we can't make them give us permission to occupy the building. And if they don't respond, what do? Do we move it anyway, or is that the end of it? We don't know until we ask the question. So, I mean, could you draft a letter and have Bob deliver it to, would that be the way to do it?
I think so. I'll get the letter drafted next Tuesday or Wednesday when I'm back in town.
Proof of building completion, I suppose that's just going to be, that would go hand in hand with A, wouldn't it, Bob, if we get the insurance? I mean,
say it again?
Proof of building completion, proof of bidding for project completion. The only thing that's over $25,000 we got 3 bids on, the cement work.
Okay.
So you need to get them to Bob.
Just a copy of those bids.
Yeah.
Okay, did you read the whole paragraph?
Did we advertise
Over
for
25,000 is formal, under 25,000 it's just 3 bids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did we advertise for the cement work?
Hmm?
I think a formal bidding process would be advertising for the cement work. But we haven't chosen anybody. We could still do it that way.
We did too.
But I mean, it was advertised to start with. We just couldn't. Those people just couldn't complete it. This thing has been put out for bid. We can't start over with the project again.
No, you're right about that. And it's $100,000 threshold anyway for bids.
Well, I don't want to argue about that here.
No, we'll talk to. I mean, these are special circumstances. I mean, this isn't like we just started the project and.
No, the bids were done, and the contract was over, and they left. So
right, we're picking up the pieces.
Yeah,
how do you do that?
Right.
What's the procedure for that?
Right.
Yeah. Final reimbursement request, of course. That's kind of strange, isn't it? Final reimbursement request is. All right.
Well, the completion deadline is September 30th. So
Right.
you got to turn it around in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, status report. Bob, are you working on that?
I just got it today, and I don't know who's going to work on it. I haven't been any part of this process since you guys started putting your feedback together. I don't know what your deadlines are, your milestones are. I don't know. I'll be happy to work with somebody on it. But, you guys proceeded forward with this. I've been not asked to take part in really anything. But I will do whatever I can. It's just a simple, I forwarded it to Ron and Sam. It's an online fillable thing, it's pretty basic. Milestones can be very basic, I've had to do this for other grants.
Okay.
A little bit of clarification on Bob. We've asked you over and over again how we should proceed forward with this, and you just throw up your hands and say, I don't know. So we were forced to try to proceed forward because it seems that there wasn't much interest anymore. So it was dumped in our laps. You still are the DES director, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, and then you're still receiving a salary for that.
Correct.
And the administration of this grant is within your job description for that. So
And I'm happy to do so, but I'm happy to have someone help me with your guys' plans and thoughts, because that's what they're asking here, milestones and what you want to do, and happy to do it.
So
I'm assuming I'll be wrong, I'm guessing, for helping me with this, work with him on this.
I would guess so.
Happy to do so.
So I think there needs to be, the thing that I don't see here, but you probably handle that, Bob, is clarification that the dollars spent now are 100% towards the EOC, so that the percentages they use when they pay us back will be 75%.
Yes, they'll be in our.
They understand that, so, because I mean, we've been being paid 31% and 33%.
Right,
And,
right. That's what this should be.
Ron, you got anything else?
No, I think you guys are covering everything I like to discuss.
Jamie, you're gonna check on C and
Yeah. I'll do B and C. I'll try to take care of next week.
I just don't see any way to. I don't see. I think it's been complied with once. I mean, what we're doing is picking up the pieces, and we're going to stay within the guidelines of the grant anyway. We're not going over on that.
And I talked to Aaron Burst about this one other time, and that's what he said too, is that it was already been one time and the contract was terminated, and it's kind of a mess. So what do you do in that situation?
So wouldn't the original bid be sufficient?
And some of those have run over. In the original bid, line items ran over. I mean, so there isn't. It isn't like there isn't precedence for this. They just made it up within the rest of it. But have you talked to Greg at all, Bob? Greg Wills?
Not about this, I mean, other DES problems we got going on.
Okay.
But not about this. It's in Debbie's hands unless there's some major issues. Okay, I just sent Debbie an email, this is what I asked her. I said, Debbie, the Griggs County Commission is wondering if the certificate of insurance will suffice as an occupancy certificate. There is no building inspection entity here in Griggs that covers building codes. If that won't work, please advise where to go to get an occupancy certificate.
We could assign somebody who's that duty. Right. Quick here.
I think he's on the phone.
Ron, you want to be a building inspector for a day?
No, thank you.
You know, that's maybe not such a, maybe we could get a building inspector for a small amount and say, yeah, looks good.
I mean, we might be able to hire one from Fargo or something. I don't know. I mean, that's what they do, is look at these projects and say, yeah, that's safe and we're solid.
I know there's a walkthrough sign-off form that the fire department can sign off on, that the sprinklers are there, everything's working.
Okay. Did they come up and train you guys?
On what?
Alarm and the sprinkler system and all that?
He showed me how to disarm and rearm the alarm. They're coming back, finish, they got something else they gotta finish.
Because each one of you will have to have your own passcode.
No, except for this, it's one passcode, because it's not a theft system. It's basically a panic system. Panic alarm and fire alarm.
There's no entry alarms?
What's that?
There's no entry alarms? Oh.
It's just panic alarms.
Who want to break into the sheriff's department?
Oh, you want to break into
It's usually the other way around. It's usually the other way around. They want to break out.
Yeah.
So the Electro Watchman is a company that monitors that phone line and calls you if something's going on, or the fire department.
Yeah.
Why don't we just have it call the fire department?
When the alarm goes off, it calls our 202 numbers. So whoever's working, it calls that. It'll call my cell phone 24/7, 365. And then if they don't get a response on that call, if we don't pick up the alarm or reset it in a certain amount of time, their alarm company gets involved. They're monitoring.
I know. I mean, we have the same thing at the bank.
Right.
But we hire them to call you. Why would we hire them to call you? Why wouldn't we just have the alarm call you instead?
It does. You know, what you guys want to do from there, that's in your hands. You know.
I'm just...
You know how the industry goes. I'm assuming there's some lottery in there. You know, way outside of our world here.
It's only $50 a month or whatever,
Right.
but it still seems like it seems kind of weird that we hire somebody to monitor the courthouse and call the sheriff if something happens. Because
And
it seems like we could have the alarm call the sheriff.
It's all, they don't put it in, they don't supply any equipment, correct? All the equipment for this is,
I think, is an Electro Watchman the monitoring company or?
Yeah, the Electro Watchman is the company.
They're the monitoring
They do the
company.
monitoring
They're not,
and they
don't
do all the installation there. They take care of it A to Z.
no, but everything's in there already. We put it in, didn't we?
Right, through Electro Watchman. They did all the work.
Right, we own it.
Yeah, it's their complete system. There was no other bids on. There's really no anybody else that services our area very big.
Well, don't tell Debbie that.
There you go.
Well, ours are done by security specialists.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're other ones.
they're far.
But no one else bid on it.
So this is a service fee here.
Yeah, the monitoring fee is for their company to, you know, and you can add and delete things on that system too. You can add.
They monitor the fire alarm. They'll get a different signal for a fire or a panic button, which I don't know why we need panic buttons in Griggs County,
But the way it looks to me, if the fire alarm goes off, the first agency to be notified is law enforcement, and then they're monitoring our line, right?
And they're monitoring what?
They're monitoring the law enforcement line.
No.
No. They're monitoring
the system,
the alarm.
So what happens if there's a fire? The alarm will call us. If there's a failure there, the monitoring system will call us, and they'll call state radio and get fire and ambulance dispatched. That's how that system works. It's all set up.
And
it's quicker to have state radio call a fire department than it is for me to do it. It's
Probably a bigger value, if you want to call it that they provide, is they test it every day.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have people that know how to do that. I mean, I don't know how to do it. And we have the same thing at the bank, except for it's a different monitoring company, we own our different equipment from a different manufacturer.
And they do system testing daily, like we talked. They test those circuits daily, and they also do live tests with my office and with state radio. You know, to make sure those connections are in place.
Probably once a year they do that, but they test they ping the alarm every day.
So our system dials their number.
Our system calls their operations center that's manned 24 hours a day. And depending upon what signal they get from our alarm, they will call Bob or the fire department. That's how I read that.
Correct. And if for some reason myself or my staff can't respond in the timely fashion they need, then it goes from there. And I'm sure there's a certificate insurance discount tied to this. There usually is. If someone's monitoring the building for fire and et cetera.
That's the original.
Yeah, the front one. Connie's been a good point too on that certificate of occupancy. There are some that architects side too to help provide that.
Oh, are they to provide that?
I'd have to look at
They
the
were involved in
contract
that
again.
process with the final walkthrough and sign off.
Maybe somebody should call Sonia. I mean, they'd be willing to come. I mean,
Yeah.
she said she'd be willing to help us for hourly fee or whatever.
Yeah, I think she's contracted for that as part of her contract. That was something that they had to provide.
Her contract is terminated.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm.
I'll make a motion to accept the electoral watchman contract.
Been moved by Sean to accept the electro auction contract. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Ron?
No.
John?
No.
Dale?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. What'd you do with my agenda?
Should I take it?
No. I was just kidding you. Anything else? Any other questions? Connie, Bob?
Yeah, for this audit, the Harold's one, can we get Connie all the reimbursement requests of the Bank of North Dakota that were turned in by the building authority?
The certificates of requisition.
Yeah, is that what you call them? Yeah. I know we've got them up to a point, but it must be complete now. And then it must show the rundown of the account balance as it goes down. Okay.
Well, no, not each certificate does. My spreadsheet does that I did on Excel, but
Okay. Well, if we just have each certificate, that's fine. Because it'll equal the total dollars anyway. And then can we get the ending, the account or the latest statement of that account? Yeah. Or probably just a summary of that account from inception to end. So there shouldn't be any more activity there now, right?
no.
Okay.
The summary is my Excel spreadsheet. Do you want something from the bank?
From the bank, yeah.
Because they just do a monthly report, they don't do a.
Right, but they should be able to
Well,
back.
actually, they do an
They do,
annual
yeah.
at the end of June, so there should be
Yeah,
one
they should.
coming now.
Yep, if we could just, so that we got that, so that we can,
Do you want all the backup that was sent with the certificates, or just each original certificate? That would be like copies of the checks that were paid and the billings.
no, we don't need that, just a certificate, the request. The signed request is what we need.
Okay?
No, that audit report needs to be finished at some point.
I don't know.
Because there are people waiting for it. So if you're gonna hire a different auditor and do a different one, it better be done pretty quick. I don't know if you can even make it happen, but
I don't know which one you want to pick.
And if we don't have enough, he can make us up some more. I understand the complication of it, but do you feel confident? As he said, this is your audit, and you stand behind it. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
If you guys want to hire someone else, I get on the phone, and the crappy thing is, everybody's gone on the 4th of July weekend in most of the firms.
Is there a legal obligation to have that done by a certain time? Who's waiting for it?
Bank of North Dakota. Anyway, let's finish this. Are you guys have any more questions for Bob and Connie?
No, the only thing is, has there been a review done on the previous requests that were rejected, and some of them were rejected because of lack of documentation? Has that ever been followed up on to make sure that?
They've gotten all the documentation. We haven't gone through the last,
But what we've gone through, there's very little we can even identify
yeah,
that's not kosher, and so.
it would just be, I think, something on the last one, but.
Well, I mean, we had some denied requests previously, early on,
Yes.
and they were
those
denied for
were-
lack of documentation.
Right, and we
so
provided that.
that has, so
And
that's all
been
been
reimbursed
settled
some of
up.
it, yeah.
So before our final closeout, we'll go back through it, and if there's things that we think are percentually wrong, then Dave said bring them in. We'll
And basically dependent on whether or not we have used up all the grant money. I mean,
Right.
of course, if we hit the limit, there's no use going back and trying to get something we can't get anyway.
The change would be, we would potentially get more money. If they were wrong on what.
Unless we matched the grant.
Unless we matched out the grant. And we're real close to doing that anyway.
Right.
And so, and then the other thing, could we get the balance in that EOC account? Because a certain amount of that has to be transferred back to the general fund. We spent $50,000 out of the general fund in order to clear up the mediation. Yeah. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks.
Have a good weekend.
Jamie, you're gonna check with the state auditor and see if we are compelled to include the building authority in our audit.
Remember we brought that up last time when we had a little go around about that.
I don't know how we can include them in our audit when we don't even have access to their books.
Control one way or the other.
It does not matter. We could have access to their books if we were the building authority, and that's typically how it is. And it is.
They're not a building authority.
Well, be that as it may, they think they are.
Well, I know, but
Harold, they are a building authority. I mean, it's the same exact documentation that was filed in Barnes County and in a lot of places.
They're not a subdivision of the county though. They're their own separate entity, and I think that's where the lines are crossed, because often a building
Somebody would have to
authority is
show me the
subdivision.
difference, because there's no statutory requirement that there's a vote of the people to form a building authority in North Dakota.
No, it's the funding of the building authority that's the difference.
Oftentimes, a building authority is funded. There used to be a Cooperstown Building Authority.
Yeah, I know that, but
it was
but
funded by
you know
tax
what?
dollars.
This methodology of funding project finance has been done over and over again in North Dakota. There's plenty of historical cases to look at. We don't need to try to argue whether it's right or wrong what Harold is doing. We can find out.
Well, but I mean, it makes no difference, because his argument that this was had to include it in makes no difference. It had nothing to do with his figures here.
Well,
I mean, it made no difference.
well, you told them to take it out of there.
No, I told him it had to be reflective of the $290,000.
Yeah, that's a $290,000 con, John.
What we need to do is rate. I mean, if it needs to be in there, it needs to be in there. But if it doesn't, it doesn't.
That's
I think
right.
we need to find out from the state auditor what
That's
needs to
fine.
happen.
If what needs to be in there?
The building authority needs to be in there from the state auditor. I don't think that it does, but I'll find out. I'm not an auditor.
Nope, neither are we. Okay, anything else?
Would you guys like to revisit the tax director's
Oh,
decision?
I suppose what we should do, Sean and I should interview that last candidate, and then we'll come back to the next meeting with recommendation.
Yeah.
That's the thing to do.
I'm sorry, I'm so mixed up, but.
We adjourn.
Been moved by Sean that we adjourn. Is there a second to the motion? Any discussion?
Can I ask one more question? Sure.
Yeah?
Maybe I'm slow. I can't get in my head how the building authority is included in the budget of Griggs County. I can't get that into my head because it's not a department. It is not funded by Griggs County. There was a payment. It's a vendor of Griggs County. A payment is made to it.
I know. I don't get it, but somebody does.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, even if it's included as a sideline, it makes no difference to the argument that we're having with Harold on how that money was spent.
That's not the argument.
Right.
Whether the building authority is included in the audit.
But it makes no difference on the overall on how it made no difference on how we changed those numbers, and the change in those numbers were not reflective of anything that we talked about. The numbers didn't change by $290,000. The numbers changed by $135,000 approximately. How that came about, I have no idea.
I can't square that.
You're right. So the fact that the building authority is included in that audit is ridiculous. That was just something to throw out there to see if we said, okay, well, good enough then. Because it makes no difference either way. The difference that is the crucial difference is just what he admitted to, that at $290,000 reduced the overall cash of the county by $290,000. That is the contention, and if that happened, then that has to be reflected somehow in the audit. And that's been my whole point all the time. And by him putting words in my mouth saying, "Oh, this is what you guys wanted, and this is what you guys wanted," that's not the way we wanted it. We wanted it to be reflective of the $290,000. He finally gets cornered into a position where he said, yes, it reduced the cash by $290,000. Well, then show me that in the audit where that happened. We went around and around and around to accomplish something that should have been just so simple.
I'm still uncomfortable with him saying the way you guys want your audit. An audit isn't supposed to be.
It should be what it is.
It's not a negotiation, and that's not right. It's
not what you want.
No.
Just remember, he's a symptom of a bureaucracy.
Get a loan at the bank.
He's a symptom of a bureaucracy. Every county commission wants to have a glowing audit. He provides it. We're the exception.
I had just one quick question about that audit thing,
Yeah.
like where he was saying, well, do you guys want it here, do you want it here? Could that be like how when I had that stuff in the general fund and it was in there, and then I did a correction and then had it moved to the EOC? Is that kind of how he's doing it?
Yeah.
Except well, kind of, except the way he's doing it, if when he moved money out of the general fund into other funds, that at the end of the year, we can't move it back. So what will happen is, the way he has it now, we'll get to the end of the year, the general fund will be short by $135,000. Yes, the money is still in the total obligation of the county, but we have no way to move it out of those specialized funds into the general fund. And that will be the rub. So that can't happen. I mean, if it was in the general fund, then it's got to stay in the general fund. If it wasn't, it wasn't. And the general fund was increased by $290,000 because they did not take the $290,000 out and send it over to the off-budget account. So as the cash got reduced by $290. But yes, but in actuality, before you're never supposed to even overdraw a fund. You're supposed to transfer the money before you authorize the payment. So the way we do it, fixing it at the end of the year, is not correct.
Actually, I'm going to argue with that because I've been told that you can do that as long as the funds can go in deficit throughout the year, as long as they're not in deficit and closing on the books.
I just read it. I won't be able to find it. I just read it. Was reading the budgets in the county. I just read that here this morning.
Is there any more discussion? Is there any more discussion? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. See you, Ron.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, meeting adjourned.
Bill, here is cuckoo one more time.
5:07 PM. Next meeting is July the 24th at 1 PM.